Let me ask you a question. Why do some businesses seem to get bigger every single year, while others spend years working harder, hiring more people, generating more leads, and still feel like they are fighting the same problems over and over again? Why is it that two companies can sell the same service, charge similar price, have similar teams, and operate in the same market, yet one becomes $100 million company while the other one never gets past even its first million? Most people would tell you it's because they have better marketing, better sales, better leadership, better employees, better technology, and better funding, and maybe some of them even have investors. I don't believe that that's the real answer. I believe that the biggest reason businesses stop growing is because founders are solving problems they can see, while completely ignoring the systems creating those problems in the first place. I want you to think about it for a second. When revenue drops, founders ask, how do I get more sales? When employees leave, they ask, how do I hire better people? When operations become really chaotic, they buy another project management tool. When communication really breaks inside of the company, they schedule another meeting with the team. Every solution is really reactive to the problems that are happening. Every solution treats the actual symptoms. But here's the big problem that I see. Symptoms don't create themselves. They are produced by something much deeper. Imagine walking into, let's say, a hospital with a fever. A great doctor doesn't ask, how do we lower your temperature? They ask a simple question: what's causing the fever? Because by understanding what's causing the fever, we can get to the root cause. Because the fever isn't the disease. It's evidence that something deeper inside the body isn't functioning properly. Businesses work exactly in the same way. Revenue isn't your problem. Sales aren't your problem also. Marketing isn't your problem. Hiring also isn't your problem. Those are all outputs from the systems you currently have. They are symptoms of what something much deeper is happening. And that's where almost every founder gets stuck. They've been taught how to improve marketing, how to improve offer, how to get better at sales. They've been taught how to hire. They've been taught how to build a funnel or how to get somebody to build a funnel for you. They have been taught how to use AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude. But almost nobody teaches you how business actually is designed in the first place, how companies are architected the right way, how decision flow is going through an organization, how information moves through the organization, how operating systems actually interact with each other, how business becomes scalable, how they become valuable, how they become sellable. And here is a sentence what I want you to remember for the rest of your life while you're operating a business. Every business is perfectly designed to produce its current results. Think about that. If your business is doing 500K a month, it's perfectly designed to produce 500K a month. If your business has inconsistent sales, it's perfectly designed to produce inconsistent sales. If your team constantly depends on you, your business is perfectly designed for your team to depend on you. If your business can grow without creating more chaos, your business is perfectly designed, perfectly created to create more chaos as it actually grows. That's not an insult to you. It's actually good news, because if your results are produced by the architecture of your own business, then changing that architecture automatically changes also the results. That's exactly what this masterclass that I will show you is about. I'm not going to teach you another marketing strategy. I'm not going to teach you a funnel. I'm not going to teach you another sales script. I'm not going to teach you what gurus teach you online. I'm not going to give you another productivity hack that you don't need. Instead, I'm going to teach you how to think like a people who design companies, not just run them. Over the next couple hours, I'm going to introduce you to what I call the 7 enterprise operating systems. These are the 7 systems that sit behind every scalable company, valuable, well-run company. Once you understand them, you will stop asking, how do I fix problems inside a business? And you will start asking which operating system is producing that specific outcome. That single shift will change how you make decisions, how you build your company, and how you lead your team forward, and how you think about growth in the first place. My goal isn't for you to leave this video with more information. My goal is for you to never look at your business the same way again you currently are looking. So grab a notebook, remove every distraction, and stay with me until end of this video. Because by end of this video, we will finish, you will understand why some businesses stay small forever, while others become enterprises that continue to grow for a long time after the founder has been disappeared from this world. So it's really important that I show you what a durable 100-year company actually looks like. How can JP Morgan still be living for the next 100 years? Why are they living? I'm going to show you everything you need to have in order for you to optimize for 100 years instead of the next 12 to 3 years. The 7 enterprise operating systems every business needs to build a scalable and sellable asset. I didn't say build a scalable company. I said build a scalable and sellable actual asset. And this is really important to understand here from the start, before we even get into this entire masterclass, is that most businesses in the modern generation are optimizing for generating more revenue inside of the business. So most of us are thinking, how do I build the business over the next 12 months, next 24 months, or next 36 months? Nobody's asking a question, how do I build the next enterprise that can be durable over the next 100 years? Because you don't necessarily need to build a company that is durable for the next 100 years, but by just thinking, optimizing that type of mindset will help you to really build the right company that eventually can be durable for the next 100 years. Because you have the right foundation, the right systems inside the business, and most importantly, it becomes your asset. Looking at the most businesses currently and how the situation is currently with most founders starting companies, operating their companies, none of those companies are actual assets. Because every single company that I have been speaking to, founder is somehow still dependent. And founder is still somehow needed inside of the company. There's founder dependency in most of the companies. Most of the companies are having a growth ceiling. And it's an invisible ceiling that's holding the company back from growing. It's because it's not a scalable, sellable asset. You can scale more hours, you can scale more tasks, you can scale more work. But what you can scale is the systems. And so looking at most companies currently that I have seen is the biggest issue most companies are having currently is that most companies have optimized for revenue. They have not optimized for building a durable company, having the right foundation, having the right systems, having the right architecture inside of the business, so the business at one point can actually be sellable and become an asset. Because nobody wants the business where the founder is doing like 12 roles and he's fulfilling 12 key roles inside of that specific business. Or where the business is built on referrals, and the moment somebody acquires that company, the referrals walk away with the founder that actually sold the company, right? So this entirely will help you to break down what needs to happen, the 7 enterprise operating systems every business needs, your business needs, in order for you to build a scalable and sellable asset. Before we get into it, these are the 12 laws of business architecture. Let me break them down for you. So law 1 is every outcome is produced by a system, meaning even when you don't have a system, it still counts as a system. Basically saying, hey, let's say you hire somebody, and now you have hired them in the chaos and they're not performing, it still means you have a system. You not being capable of remembering things means you still have a system. That system is just producing very poor results, okay? You need to understand that every single outcome is produced by some type of system. Even having no system is also counting as having a system that is just with a lot of holes in it. Law number 2, businesses never outperform their architecture. Okay, the way you have architected the entire infrastructure of your business is the way your business is going to be performing. And so when your business cannot grow, cannot scale, and cannot get to the next 5 levels, 10 levels, 6 levels, is the reason for it that you have built it from the start in that setting. Law number 3, every business is perfectly designed for its current results. Currently, where you are sitting means your business has been designed to get those specific results. If you're asking yourself, well, how do I get to the next 1 million a month, 2 million a month? How do I even get to the next 10 to 50 million a month? It comes down of how your business is designed. Is your business currently designed to make the 50 million a month, to make the 10 million a month, to make the 1 million a month? And if the answer is no, it's not, well, that's the main reason why you currently are sitting where you are. Law number 4. Growth exposes weaknesses. It doesn't create weaknesses. When you grow and when you don't have all the right systems, the settings, the SOPs, the processes, the documentation, the eventually shows you where the weaknesses are. So that means, let's say you go to the gym and I place, let's say on the bench press, let's say we put a lot of weight and you can lift it. Okay? That means you haven't established the muscle strength to be capable of pushing that type of weight. And so the weight has actually exposed your weakness. Okay, so the growth also exposes weakness inside of the business. You may get more leads coming in, you start closing, and suddenly you say, hey, but the fulfillment cannot actually keep up with the demand we're currently having. Well, that shows that there was weakness inside of your fulfillment. Okay, because the growth automatically exposes that weakness. It doesn't create weaknesses, it exposes where the weaknesses happen in the business. Next one, law 5. Complexity is earned, simplicity is engineered. You can earn complexity, you can have all these fun, you can optimize your business for having more complexity inside of the business. Simplicity is engineered by systems, having the right SOPs, having the right things. You can scale your business and the complexity automatically increases as well. It's because you don't have the right systems, you don't have the right SOPs, you don't have the right architecture, you don't have the right processes, you don't have the right dashboards, you don't have the right data. And that's the main reason why there's so much complexity. Simplicity is actually engineered. An architect engineers that in the business. Law number 6. Every constraint exists inside an operating system. Your systems currently, having them or not having them, shows exactly why the constraint is happening. Okay? Law 7. Revenue is an output, never the objective. Okay? Most important, you need to understand, like I already mentioned, in the modern society, look at the most businesses, look at the most founders, everybody's optimizing for revenue, right? That is not the objective to be optimizing when you're growing a company. Your company should be durable for the next 100 years. That's your main aspect of building that company. Is the question like, what type of business can be durable for 100 years? And that eventually comes down to what type of systems, what hiring processes, what are training processes, what are the KPIs look like, how do we measure health, what is the data, what is the risk, what is the opportunity, all the different type of questions coming. And that automatically, when you are building for those 100 years, that is the output. That's the output you're gonna get with a huge revenue. Okay, so like when you build for the next 100 years, the revenue is going to be output by building those specific systems. When you are just optimizing for revenue and just revenue itself, that's where the issue starts to happen. Law 8. Organizations scale through capability, not effort. Capabilities are systems. They're not effort. It's not like, hey, so we're working 4 hours, now we're going to increase that to 2 hours, to 2 hours more, so which is 6 hours. That's effort. Capability is like, the system is capable of handling XYZ. The system is capable of handling XYZ. Law number 9. Decision quality determines enterprise quality. The way you make decisions inside of your company right now is going to determine the next 5 years, 6 years, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, the next 20 years, the next decade, the next century. The question is, are your decisions built for the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, a decade, or a century? That's the question. Okay, that's why if you look at huge companies like JP Morgan, they are here for a very long time. And your question should be like, what question made them to be the company they are today? And it probably wasn't like, how do we build more revenue, or how do we, or let's say, or how do we build a system for the next 3 to 5 years? It was probably asking us a question that's way more longer thinking question than just the next 3-4 years. It's probably like how we can be durable company for the next 100 years. And then that question ultimately led to, okay, what systems we need to install. It's the same as you would ask yourself, like, what type of health do I need to consistently be at high energy? What food do I need to eat? What my day should look like in order for me to perform at a high level? And that would come into like the food, your workout routine, your sleep, and everything else, right? Because you're optimizing for that. It's not like, how can I have more energy today, and you go to the supermarket and you buy Red Bull. That's not the question. You're just only getting the energy for one day. The big question is like, how can I stay and maintain and sustain this high energy output for the next 5 to 10 years? And then ultimately comes down to, what you are eating, what you are doing every single day, right? Law 10, knowledge must belong to the organization, not individuals, okay? It comes down to how information flows through your company. Law 11, learning speed becomes competitive advantage. How fast your company can learn is also the matter of speed they will actually develop. Law number 12, architecture determines enterprise value. The way you build your company now determines the value of that company. So most of the companies, and most of you that are watching this, have a company that is depending on you. And that's not a lot of value for somebody who wants to actually buy a company. So architecture really determines the enterprise value. So this is why the name of this entire thing, the masterclass behind this, is to give you the 7 enterprise operating systems that you need to build scalable and sellable asset. So the fallacy of activity-based growth is that the biggest lie in business is that you need more leads to grow. In reality, you don't. You need to stop thinking about your business as a collection of activities. Businesses aren't built from activities, they are built from systems. Until you understand this distinction, every solution you implement, like more leads, more employees, more software, more marketing, will be just temporary. They will never be permanent. These additions do not solve underlying problems. They only increase the complexity of a poorly designed system. Growth does not create problems. It exposes architectural weaknesses that were already present inside of your company, right? It's like let's say, for example, I build the foundation on sand and I'm putting more weight on top of that foundation. Suddenly I can see that the entire weight is just being sinking into the sand. So is the problem that I was adding more weight, or was the problem that it was the way I have set the foundation and where I was setting the foundation? And most of it comes down to the foundation, because if I have a really strong foundation, right? If I want to build a skyscraper, the foundation needs to go really deep. A strong foundation can build something really durable, something really big. And the same for most businesses. It's on the foundation you are building, on the principles you are building, on the how far are you thinking is what building your company currently. It's how far are you thinking? Are you thinking for the next 12 months, next month, next 3 years, next 5 years? Or are you thinking for the next 100 years? Okay, that's the big difference. So like a skyscraper, you don't start with furniture or the location or the coffee machine. You begin with the architecture, the load-bearing structure, and the foundation. Every floor depends on the integrity of the system beneath it. It's like, can we go 100 floors up? Yes, we can, but what does the foundation look like? Because if the foundation is not capable of handling that type of weight, eventually the entire building will come down. And that's the same question you should be asking your business. Is your business currently designed to make 1 million a month? Is it designed to make 2 million a month? What data do we have behind it? What systems we have behind it? So when we look at the business, we can see if the business is actually durable for the next 5, 10, 15 years, 12, 20 years, 30 years, 60, all the way up to 100 years. What systems are in place, okay? So most founders, when we look at most founders, they build this all backwards. They obsess over tactics, funnels, and ads, and little like pixels and everything else. They obsess over tactics before designing the architecture. They install software before creating the processes. They hire people before defining the capabilities, before they even having the processes. It's like the biggest thing I have seen is somebody hires somebody because they're desperate, because there's too much chaos, and they just give them things to do. And then later on they say, well, this person really didn't perform, they weren't an A player. It wasn't that they weren't an A player. It's that your environment wasn't designed for an A player. That was the main problem. The chase revenue before even building operating systems is another big problem, okay? The solution is not to work harder. It's to redesign the system as collection of enterprise operating systems working together to produce the predictable outcomes. So with this one, let me start by chapter. We're going to go over a lot of chapters. I'm going to show you all the systems you need to have. So by end of this masterclass, by end of this entire video, this entire training we're going to go, you're going to have a really profound understanding of what a really scalable, sellable asset should look like, what you should be building towards, what you should be thinking towards, how you should be thinking, what systems you need to have. So eventually you can build the next $100 million company that can be durable for the next 50 to 100 years. That's the main intention of this video. So, chapter number 1, businesses don't produce revenue. Revenue is an output, not a direct product. Consider coffee machine. You don't create the coffee, you design conditions, water pressure, heat, that allow coffee to be produced. Coffee is the output of the machine, not the machine itself. Businesses operate exactly in the same way. Revenue is an output. Revenue is the output of functioning revenue operating systems, which is called ROS. Profit is the output of a financial operating system, which is FOS. Happy clients are the output of a client success operating system. High-performing employees are the output of a people operating system. Innovation is the output of executive intelligence operating system. Consistency is the output of an operations system or operations operating system. Great businesses engineer systems that consistently produce these outputs. When the revenue drops, a founder asks, how do we get more sales? But a systems architect asks, which operating system is no longer producing the output we expect or we actually need? Because the entire next generation business that you're trying to currently build should be built upon systems. So when you look, you don't say, hey, how do we get more sales? Or how do we get more leads? Or how can we help more clients? It's what system currently is no longer producing the results we want. And then we go and optimize that system. Chapter number 2 is the business iceberg. Most founders focus only on what is above the surface. Architects investigate the entire foundation. It's like before you buy a land, right? We need to investigate on what and how that land has been, how that land is optimized for building a strong foundation, right? You maybe have, and that comes down into understanding the layers of soil beneath it. Okay, so you may be buying a land and suddenly you discover that, hey, there's a lot of kind of clay and it's like kind of soft. You kind of find out that, hey, this is not a good land for strong architecture. It becomes a problem, right? So this is why most founders focus only on what above the surface. They only look like, oh, okay, great, we can build a house because I have a nice view. But can the foundation really be built in a way where you can enjoy that view for the next 50, 100 years, where your families are moving in, your next generation is moving in and they're enjoying the same view, right? So that's why architects investigate that foundation. The visible, this is above the waterline, is the revenue and the profit, the client's results, the employee output, and the business growth. This is all the visible things. Okay, somebody says, hey, I'm making 1 million. This is the visible thing. We don't see it how exactly that business is making that million. We don't see it how they are keeping the profit. What is the profit? We don't see none of that. We only see what is called the surface. Revenue, profit, client results, employee output, right? The invisible, and this is the invisible that nobody sees, is the actual foundation. It's like what systems and architecture is supporting that 1 million. Decisions and information flow, like what decisions and how information is flowing to support that 1 million. Operating models and culture, like how is that supporting that 1 million? Leadership and governance is how is that supporting that 1 million? Because maybe that 1 million is, and the guy is giving 100 hours a week and slaving away for his own business. That becomes a really big issue. So if you only focus on visible outcomes, you will spend your career reacting. You only will say, hey, the revenue is down, and then we're going to go to do something to increase the revenue. Because you are only focusing on the visible outcomes. You're only focusing on above the waterline surface, right? You're not focusing deeper. You're not focusing on the business systems. So every time a client leaves, it's like we need to get a new client. Like, it's because you're reacting to what is happening. You're not reacting to how that output and that result was actually engineered. Because the problem is how we engineer results. It's never the results we get. If we only react to the results we are getting and not how the result was engineered, then we have a huge problem. Okay? So chapter 3, the shift from entrepreneur to an architect is the biggest shift you can have inside of your business. In the early stages, an entrepreneur's ability to wear every hat is an advantage, right? You're doing marketing, sales, communication, reach out, cold outreach, emailing, you're doing everything. And that's your advantage. You probably know things, you need to get the business off the ground running, you do everything. Eventually, these strengths become your main constraints, okay?
The entrepreneur asks, how do I fix this today? The architect asks, how do I design the business so this problem rarely happens again? Or maybe even never happens again. And that's the big difference between an entrepreneur and an architect. An entrepreneur is just fixing problems. An architect designs systems so these problems can be solved now, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, the next year, the next 5 years, the next maybe potentially 10 years, 100 years. The shift marks the transition from operator to an actual CEO. Okay, so like, you just don't want to be all the time operating and be like a problem solver and managing and doing. You need to get into from an operator state to a CEO state. And a CEO, a chief executive officer, is designing systems to solve tomorrow's problems. You stop measuring value by how many fires you extinguish and start measuring it by how few fires exist in the fireplace. Okay? The core model here is this. The hierarchy of an enterprise architecture ensures that execution becomes predictable by focusing strategic energy on the upper layers, right? So value output, operational protocols, the EOS engines, and governance, which is the EMS, okay? So at the top, you have unifying disparate operations to secure data in the capabilities. Then you have the operational protocols, which is like the SOP, system operational protocols, or some of them like to call the system operational procedures, right? Rigid interface and handoff protocols of how you hand off systems to somebody else and how you place them inside of that system to be actually performing. Then we have the EOS engine, which is the modular system design, structuring scalable processes, how those systems actually and those processes that you're hanging off, how can they be actually scaled? And then get into the governance, the EMS, a unified data backbone acting as a single source of truth, right? And that comes into your data, that goes into all the other values that support how these systems can be scaled. So the executive management system, EMS, is the operating constitution of governance layers. Then you have the enterprise operating systems, the EOS, which is the modular engines driving the business forward. So revenue operating system is the demand engineering. So you have revenue operating system, which is all about how you bring attention, how you build demand, all about leads and how you get people inside of your business. Client success operating system is outcome engineering. It's like outcomes that will happen after the clients come in. Operating system is execution engineering. People operating systems is organizational capability engineering. So the capabilities of how we handle things, how much we can take, and how we can grow. Finance operating systems are the FOS, which is the financial engineering. Technology operating systems is the digital infrastructure engineering. And executive intelligence operating system is the knowledge engineering itself, how information flows through your organization. So departments, function organizational units. Then you have 4, the playbooks and the standard operating procedures, which is step-by-step instructions for flawless execution. So you build systems, right? And this is a big thing. You may build a system, you may hire somebody, but if there is no process to train them into that system, if there is no instructions, step-by-step execution model of how exactly you are becoming a pilot for that system, then you're going to have big issues in the company. Because it's not only enough to build systems, you need to place people into those systems. So the question comes, how well can I place somebody in? And that really depends on, that really depends on the training processes, the SOPs. It also goes down to how processes have been recorded before, how well have they been performing in a history timeline, and how you can take the entire experience of that system, give it to somebody so they can then perform at the highest level. Then you have number 5 is checklist and daily execution, the tactical heartbeat of an organization. Most businesses spend all their time at the bottom of this hierarchy, tasks and checklists. Elite companies spend most of their strategic energy designing the layers above it. And that's why their execution becomes predictable. It's not only checklists and what we're doing today, because that's the question of an operator. It's like, hey, what do we do today? A CEO asks, what systems need to be improved today, what systems don't exist yet that need to be existing, what problems are happening right now or will be happening in the future that I need to solve right now. And this comes down to all the enterprise operating systems: revenue operating system, client success operating system, operations operating system, people operating system, finance operating system, technology operating system, executive intelligence operating system, right? So let's move into the chapter number 4, which is businesses are a living system. Everything around the world, everything in life is a frequency. It's energy. All the energy it's a living thing. Energy cannot be destroyed, but energy can be created, energy can be transferred. So what you need to really understand here, everything in life is a living thing. And a world itself is a living thing as well. A business is not a machine, it's a living actual organism. Machines are static and predictable, but a living systems involve, adapt, and if you leave untended, if you leave your systems untended, they will decay and they will be underperforming, they will be collapsing. So this is why when you look at the system, right, you maybe have a system that can take 5 clients now, but over time that system develops into taking 50, 100 clients. And that just shows you how a system is also a livable thing, because it's like a living organism. It consistently becomes evolving, adapting, and growing. I just need to take a sip of water because my mouth's getting really dry. So, moving on. The illusion of departments. Departments are arbitrary lines on an org chart. A living system, every part is interconnected. A failure in sales is often actually a failure in product or operations that has finally reached the surface. So, sometimes you need to understand this. You may look at your sales processes and you may ask yourself questions: why is the sales not working? Do we need to put more marketing? Do we need to get more leads? But sometimes the failure in sales is often actually a failure of a product or the operation of how the sales process is executed. And so it's not only to saying, hey, the sales is not working. Maybe it's the process of how we have engineered the sale itself. Maybe it's the product itself and the offer around the product that is no longer desirable for our targeted market audience. Next one, why businesses become more complex. As you add more people and customers, the number of potential connections increases, right? So you are actually creating a spider web. And once this happens, without a strong architecture, this growth leads to complexity drag, where the organization spends more energy maintaining itself than actually serving clients. As you have more moving parts inside of the business, more moving parts are connected to more moving parts, eventually it gets really complex. And that's sometimes that complexity of the business can start to drag the business downwards. Complexity is not the enemy, by the way, right? Because a lot of us say, oh, it's too much complex, I don't understand it. Complexity is a natural byproduct of growth. The goal is not to eliminate complexity, but to manage it through modularity. So just as a body has specialized organs, business needs specialized operating systems to handle specific functions without overwhelming the entire business itself. Every business has an invisible force, okay? Beyond your written SOPs, system operational procedures or system operating protocols, there are invisible forces at play. Inertia, the tendency to keep doing things the way you always have been doing them, okay? So this is a big one for a lot of founders. It's like, I think many of us have been seeing this before. It's like maybe you get hired in the job and somebody comes like, hey, I've been doing this for 40 years. Just because you say that you've been doing this for 40 years is already you have this inertia, that the tendency to keep doing the things that have you been doing this for 40 years. And that's the main bottleneck currently stopping your business from evolving. It's like doing the things how I used to be doing. It's like not adapting to new changes, not adapting to new technology, not adapting to AI. It's like we're just going to keep doing things how we have been doing them before. And that becomes a big problem when it's the tendency of a founder to keep doing things how they were actually doing them before. Next one, feedback loops, how information travels and dictates the future behavior. It's a big one. Usually, If everything lives inside the founder's mind, inside the founder's head, it becomes a big problem because that information has no way of traveling and flowing through the company. And when the information is blocked, that automatically also starts to indicate that the business is going to go in a decay. Why? Because information has to flow truly freely through the business, because it dictates the future behavior of that business. So if everything lives inside of the mind of the founder and a lot of information is not flowing truly, it's like basically, to give you an analogy, it's like imagine your blood. You have blood vessels. The blood is flowing through those vessels. Let's say one vessel gets blocked. Now you have blood that's building up and being trapped. That suddenly can cause a lot of damage and problems to your health. And the same exactly goes into a business as well. Next one is culture, the default behavior of a system when nobody is actually watching. This one is the default behavior is we act how we have acted before. We think about systems how we have thought about before, right? So it's like, hey, when nobody's watching, we're gonna be still doing the same things. You have to completely change the entire culture. It's like, let's say, just to give you a good example. Let's say, for example, I tell a CEO now gives a huge execution of how we should be doing things, new standards, and then the CEO goes back to his old standards. Okay? That is a default behavior. That default behavior, suddenly that maybe nobody's seeing is still being seen by the company itself. The company will always see what you are doing. Maybe the people are not going to see it, but the company will always see it. The law of organizational entropy, right? So left to its own devices, any system will move towards this disorder. So that's why it's really important to have management. Because if you leave your own systems, your own devices, and any system unattended, it will move toward disorder. Without the constant injection of energy and architectural refinement, your processes will degrade. Your data will become messy and your standards will always slip. So why founders feel like they're always busy? Founders feel busy because they are acting as the glue, holding a broken system together. When you are the only thing connecting department A to department B, you become the ultimate bottleneck inside of that actual system itself, okay? So this is why founders feel like they're always busy, is because they're always fixing things, always answering things, they're always managing things, they're always coaching things, they're always speaking to the clients. They're doing absolutely mostly everything. And sometimes because they have this control, they really feel a lot of valuable things are happening inside the business because everybody needs them. But at the same time, that is the main bottleneck that's currently holding that business from actually performing and growing. The CEO's new job. This is a really big one. The CEO must transition from being the chief everything officer to the chief architect. Your job is to monitor the health of a living system and ensure that the operating systems are calibrated for the next stage of growth. Your only job in the business should be focusing on the vision and how well the systems align with the vision of where you're going and the mission you're trying to build. Your job is not to do everything. Your job is not to stick things together. Your job is not to go there and coach and perform. Your job is to make sure that you have the right systems so they align with the future where you actually are going. The next one is really important to understand here, guys. The systems architect mindset. You see, if you look at the modern society, if you go over to LinkedIn, you will find that almost everybody has a title of a CEO. And just because somebody has a title of a CEO doesn't make him a CEO. So the systems architect mindset is a shift you need to make inside of yourself in order for you to go from just an average operator, an average founder, to a high elite CEO. Because there are two different aspects when we're talking about the systems architect mindset that belongs to the high elite operating CEO or just an average founder operator. Because at the high level, when you're trying to really scale your business, when you're trying to have the right foundations, when you're trying to build the business to the next 1 million a month, 2 million a month, 100 million a month, or 1 billion a year, or 100 million a year, you cannot longer afford to be the bricklayer inside of your business. And that's the biggest problem currently that I see. Most of us are like saying that we are a CEO, we are the great founders, but when we look at the actual activities that we do, we are bricklayers. A bricklayer is completely different to an architect. A bricklayer will do every single activity to make sure that the building is being built. An architect will design the entire building, making sure that the infrastructure is right, the foundation is right, the measurements are right, every single thing is right, and then the bricklayer goes in and designs it. And that's the big difference also in the business. You have no longer to just go inside the business and do everyday's activities. Now it's time to design and build the architecture of your business. So to scale, you must adopt these architectural principles. Design for outcomes, not just activities. This is a big one, guys. Designing for outcomes is how we design all the systems. In order for you to get an outcome, we design a system so the system can produce that specific outcome. And that's really important to understand here. It's not what activities will get us that specific outcome. It's what systems do I need to design, who do I need to place inside of those systems, so eventually I get the outcome that I wanted. So we design for outcomes, not just activities. Build modular systems that can be upgraded independently. Really important. So let's say I build a system, but only I can improve, upgrade, and develop the system. Then it becomes a big problem because now I'm the only person that can develop it and upgrade it. But however, if I place an operator in there and he can upgrade it, he can make it better, he can, because every day's operation, he can see what needs to be done better, what can be done more efficiently, where we can save more time, where we can get better leverage, what levers we can pull to ultimately get bigger and better outcomes. And so I need to make the systems to be upgraded independently as well. Next one is prioritize information flow and clear feedback loops. It's not enough just so everything lives inside of your head. And this is a big one, we touched this before, but how information flows is eventually how your business develops. So you have to prioritize information flow. Information flow is really important in a business because it's what gets everything out on a document. It's what everything gets out on a system. Everything gets out on an SOP. And then from the systems that you have built, it's like we're getting feedback. That feedback helps us to improve the systems that we have created. In improving those systems, we get results. That's a feedback loop again. We again improve. So everything needs to be prioritized to put everything out on a document, SOP, so there is a clear information flow throughout your business. Next one, if businesses are living systems, if growth exposes architecture, if invisible forces determine performance, and if every recurring problem is really a system problem, then the next question becomes really obvious. What are the core operating systems every business must build? Okay, so like if businesses are living systems, as we already have discussed, if growth exposes architecture, so the architect, once you go from a bricklayer to an actual architect, so if growth exposes the architecture, shows you how strong is the architecture or how weak is the architecture, if invisible force determine performance, right? Sometimes we cannot determine what the market is going to do, but we can determine what our business is going to do. If every recurring problem is really a system problem, because the systems we build eventually shows the problems we have in them, then the next big question that we need to really answer is, what are the core operating systems every business must build? And this is what we're going to get into it. So this is what we just covered now in the first 30 minutes. It's just the tip of the iceberg. Now we're going to get into the really serious things. Okay, so through years of studying high-performing organizations and analyzing how scalable businesses actually operate, I found a very important thing. I found that every successful company can be understood through 7 enterprise operating systems that every business needs in order for them to go. So think of them as the 7 engines that collectively produce every meaningful outcome in the business, and specifically more inside of your business once you have built them out. When an engine weakens, the performance also declines. Okay, so meaning we can go, so think about it this way. We can create the greatest engine in a car. We can have the greatest engine in the car. We can put all the right cylinders, we can put the right filters, we can put the right wheels, and the car is running excellently. After 1 year, if we haven't had a good management over those, over that car specifically, that engine and everything, the engine gets in a state of decline. Why? Because it's not being tweaked, it's not being oiled, it's not being checked, it's not being well maintained. It's like a car. You have to maintain the car in order for your car to consistently produce an outcome you want. And so the same in a business. You have to tweak your engine inside of the business every single month. You have to get sharper. And most importantly, the CEO himself has to get sharper, because everything begins with the operator himself in the business. Okay? So when one engine weakens, so we have many systems, performance starts to decline. When they work together, the business becomes to scale with predictability rather than constant firefighting. So let's start with the engine every founder sees. This is really important. This is what everybody sees. And so this leads me to chapter 5. It's the revenue operating system called the ROS. Revenue is never the problem, really, guys. Imagine walking into a hospital and a patient says, "Doctor, I have fever." The doctor doesn't immediately prescribe medication. Instead, they ask why. Because a fever isn't a disease, it's a symptom. The same thing happens inside a business every day. Founder says revenue is down. But revenue isn't the problem. It's simply the symptom. So the best CEOs, which are the architects, not the bricklayers, diagnose the operating systems responsible for producing that specific outcome. The biggest misunderstanding about revenue is that most founders believe revenue comes from sales. It doesn't come from sales. Sales collect the revenue. Okay? I just want to really drill this in for you. Most of us believe that revenue comes from sales. Okay? Sales collect revenue. We are collecting revenue. They don't create revenue. Revenue is produced by an entire operating system. Think of manufacturing plant. If one stage of the production line, like assembly or quality control, breaks, the output decreases. Revenue works exactly the same way. It is the final output of a sequence of an interconnected capabilities. So revenue is an ecosystem. We have input layer, process layer, and feedback loop. Okay, so resource optimization. So this goes into your demand, identifies market opportunities. This is how well you get your attention. This is how well you can produce leads inside of your business. Then we go into the talent, deploys and execution capabilities. This goes into your closers. This goes how well they can actually close. Then we get into a capital, allocate scaling assets, right? So once we have budget coming in, once we have money coming in, it's like how well we can allocate it to produce more sales. Because sales ultimately is the systems we have designed. So then it goes like how well we can allocate that budget to produce more sales, more revenue, and grow the business. Then we get into the process layer. This is a system that is responsible for the entire transformation. So first of all, frictionless, saves operational energy, standardized, system-led, hands-off. The most important thing that I want to kind of I want to highlight here is having a standardized system. A standardized system means we don't need to customize. We don't need to every time create a new system. We have a standardized process in doing that. That saves us time, that gives us the same outcome, that produces results, and that produces scale because we can scale that system. And at the same time, we have high margins, protects the operational yields as well. Okay. Next one is the feedback loop, which I call the Kaizen project. The continuous improvement. So after action review, you have loops that show you exactly what happened and how do we get it. And then based on how we got that outcome, we can then optimize for that same outcome. Then we have predictable lifetime value, build sustainable value, okay? And then velocity minimizes scaling latency. The feedback loop is one of the most important things that actually creates this entire engine. So let's say if your system you build a system, and let's say we don't have a feedback loop, but we get really poor results. We're not getting the results we wanted. The problem automatically is because we don't have a feedback loop, we can't really improve because we're just consistently getting bad results. And so if we don't have the feedback loop, we can be creating endless amount of systems, endless amount of hiring we can do, endless amount of training, never knowing what exactly is responsible for the poor results we currently are getting. This is why the feedback loop is one of the most important parts in any business system, because it gives us a lifetime value of understanding how we can improve the company, how we improve ourselves, and how can we improve the people working inside of the company. So don't see revenue as a number, see it as an actual flow. So you have a market, you have position in the market, you have your messaging around it, and you start generating demand. Once you start generating demand, you have also lead generation. That process goes into qualification, you get qualification, you get more qualified leads, that leads to sales, then that's onboarding, that's on revenue. Every stage affects the next one. The mistake founders make is trying to improve revenue directly, which is you can't really improve revenue directly. You can't say like there's one simple action that will increase automatically the revenue. You have to improve the entire system that produces that specific revenue, that specific outcome. And that is the big difference in a lot of businesses that I currently see, is that most of the marketplace, when we look at the market, is optimizing for revenue. But you can't optimize for revenue if you don't know how revenue is actually produced. If you don't know the outcome of what actually is responsible for the outcome of revenue. You have to know everything. So in order for you to get better results and have more revenue, you need to have a better producing system. That's where the feedback loop comes again. So why revenue plateaus is really important to understand. Revenue plateaus because one capability inside the revenue operating system has become the limiting factor. And that has become what I call the constraint, a bottleneck inside of your business. So imagine trying to pour more water through a narrow pipe. Adding more water doesn't solve the problem. The pipe limits the actual throughput. Revenue is limited by the narrowest capability inside of your operating system. Okay, so like that pipe, you can pour, you can take a truck of water and just pour down, but the pipe is gonna put the same volume through it because you have a narrow pipe. So in order for you to get more water flowing through the pipe, we need to widen the pipe up. You need to have a much wider pipe. So that's exactly the same way you need to think about your actual revenue and your pipeline, okay? Revenue is delimited by the narrowest capability inside of your operating system. So the 5 layers of the revenue operating system, which you need to understand. I'm not gonna break this down. Every revenue operating system consists of 5 architectural layers. Okay, I want you to write this down. If you're not starting to write this down, then I don't know why you're in this video. So number 1, layer 1, market intelligence. Everything begins with understanding reality. Who you serve, why they buy, and what problems exist. Without this, everything is really a guesswork. It's like, who do we target? What do we do? And it's really hard to understand. But the moment you have a clear understanding who you serve, why they buy, what's the biggest pain point, why the pain point exists, why they wanted to solve it, then we can even optimize the system in better understanding our target audience. Because the ultimate job for us to understand our target audience better than they understand themselves. And that's when people want to actually follow you. And that's exactly what you need to have, is market intelligence. Next one, layer 2, positioning architecture. Positioning determines perception. And one important thing that I also want to say with positioning also determines not only perception, but it also determines how everybody else will understand where you can actually lead them, where you can take them. Your positioning is really important in the marketplace because it ultimately shows you if you are like everybody else or you have to offer something different or you are different. So I would say positioning matters sometimes even more than the entire sales process. Sales process is really important, but if you have bad positioning, that sales process really becomes affected of your positioning. Because if you have weak positioning, you're also going to get the leads, the people that are not kind of your target audience. They're not the cherry on the cherry that you wanted. They're mostly the actual bone itself. Okay, they're most actually the seed, not the cherry itself. So it's really important to understand that positioning plays a really big key role when you're trying to generate leads, when you're trying to get qualifications, when you're trying to get the right people inside of your pipeline. Okay, because like if your main goal is to drink clean water and shoot a pipe, you're putting a lot of water in, but the water is coming dirty. That's not your main goal. It's like, yes, the water is flowing, but it's not clean water that you actually drink. So that's why we add filter. And sometimes that positioning is the same as an actual filter. It cleans the dirty water. It cleans the actual pipeline. It cleans the leads that are coming in, right? So positioning determines perception, and perception determines attention. A well-positioned company attracts the right conversations naturally. Layer 3, demand engineering. Demand is not luck, it's engineered. Through content, advertising, a community, your goal is to generate predictable demand. Layer 4, conversion engineering. Demand without conversion is just a noise. This layer includes qualification, sales process, and discovery, turning attention into revenue. It's like we can get endless amount of attention. We can get endless amount of leads. We can have endless amount of people looking at us, people coming through. But it's like, how do we engineer the conversion engine? Because we need to have a conversion engine that converts all of that into actual predictable revenue. And so demand itself is not what gives you the revenue. It's just a noise. We need to filter that noise, convert that noise into actual revenue. And that's where your qualification process, sales process, and discovery process comes in. Layer number 5 is revenue intelligence. Elite companies don't just sell, they measure. They use data on pipeline velocity, conversion rates, and acquisition costs to make better decisions of what is currently happening. So you need to look at all the numbers. Sometimes it's like, okay, so how much currently it's costing you to get a lead? How much it's cost per acquisition per client? When you look at those costs, the next question is like, maybe we can lower that cost. Or maybe we can even increase the cost because we can afford to pay more for the paying client that we actually get because the lifetime value is much higher. And then the question comes here is, how do we do it? How do we lower the cost per acquisition? This is completely something different, but I just want to mention this. This is another video, but the way we sometimes lower the cost per acquisition is to increase the authority inside of your marketplace. And the way we increase the authority inside of your marketplace is by the value we provide. So if you look at some of the greatest operators currently in the marketplace, some of the known, not the greatest, time will test them because time will really tell you how great they are. But if you look at some of the most known, some of the most popular operators, which would be Alex Hormozi, you can see that there's a lot of content being produced around him. There's a lot of value. There's a lot of books. Ultimately, the cost per acquisition for him will be much lower for somebody that doesn't have that type of authority, that doesn't have that type of exposure, that doesn't have that type of recognition. And so this is where we can lower the cost per acquisition is by building that authority. And that's the one way we can only build that to providing a large amount of value. Okay, but that's for another video. Let's move on. So why marketing alone doesn't scale? Marketing scales attention, not the whole company. Sales converts that attention, operations fulfill the promise, and the client success retains the customer. Revenue depends on every operating system. Adding marketing to a broken business only amplifies its existing weaknesses, guys. Okay? If you have a bad fulfillment system, let's say you have a big promise, people really like your promise, they go in for your promise, but the problem is you cannot fulfill that promise. And your client success is really bad. It's decline. Getting more people on inside the company, producing more revenue, is eventually going to break your business. Okay? Revenue depends on every operating system, and adding marketing to a broken system only amplifies the existing weaknesses. This is important to understand. If we are currently putting more clients inside of your business, but your fulfillment is very weak, we are just breaking the system inside of your business more. So eventually what we need to come to a conclusion, if we look at an actual feedback loop, we come to realization and understanding of this, that hey, our client fulfillment is the main bottleneck currently that's holding us back from actually getting more clients, more referrals even, and adding more revenue to the business. And that's the main thing that's broken. So adding more clients is not going to solve the problem why a lot of clients are not happy. It's not going to be like, hey, listen, our fulfillment is broken. Let's just add 300 people more. And maybe out of those 300 people, we're going to find 4 to 5 people that are going to be happy. That's not the main issue here. It's not the people. It's the system that you are currently operating that is broken. That's the reason it produces really poor results. Moving on, executive diagnostic, right? Instead of asking, how do I increase my revenue? How do I increase the company's revenue? A CEO, elite operator would ask completely different questions. They would say, is demand currently predictable? Is qualification consistent? Where is a throughput slowing us down? Where is throughput slowing down? What capability is currently acting as the constraint? These are completely different questions. And another thing that I have learned over these years operating many businesses and looking at different businesses, working in different businesses, being an employee, it's like the questions that the founder or the CEO asks themselves are usually the answers that will be determining the results we'll be getting in the business. So the better you get, the better asking questions, the better results you will get in the business. Because if your only question is how we increase the revenue, it's a really kind of generic, broad question that a lot of founders are asking themselves, and which is also the biggest reason why they're currently stuck inside of the business. So the revenue operating system isn't responsible for making money. It's responsible for creating a predictable mechanism that consistently transforms market demand into profitable customers. Once you stop chasing revenue and start engineering the system, growth becomes a matter of design, not a luck itself. Now, here's the mistake most businesses actually make. And this is looking at most businesses currently online. They spend all of their energy building an exceptional revenue operating system, only to lose the value they created immediately after they sell. Most businesses, like I said already, are selling revenue, optimizing for revenue, designing for revenue. Everything is around revenue. Marketing is around revenue. It's like, hey, we're going to get you leads. We're going to get you clients. We're going to get this, da, 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 da. And you see testimonials. Then you see these big testimonials. Hey, this client got from X to Y and big revenue. But like, my big question is like, what happened after they got there? So you took that business from 30K to 250K. What happened the moment you got it to 250K? Has the founder's life bettered? Has the founder's time, the free time, increased? Has the founder's dependency in the business has decreased? What has actually happened? It's a really important extinction here to make, to really understand what has happened after they got the revenue. Because maybe, hey, I got you to $1 million a month, and now you are slaving inside of your business, and I couldn't care less because the only thing we were optimizing for revenue. We showed a lot of ads, a lot of clients currently also leaving your business, you are unhappy, there's more dependencies. Well, guys, that's not a business. That's a really high-paying job where the guy cannot see his family, doesn't have a free time, consistently stressed because he doesn't have the right systems. He has the clients and the money, but the other thing is that most of these operators that have the money don't know even what to do with the money because they have never optimized for like system engineering, becoming the architect in the business. And that's the biggest problem. Like I said, we need to think in about the next 100 years, because when we think about the next 100 years, we are thinking about what actually can get us to the next 100 years. So the systems ultimately that are being designed for those 100 years are the systems that we currently actually need in order for us to sustain the growth of the business as well, and to keep growing so we can add more. And so we can actually have not only sustainability, but also a great balance in life. And I understand a lot of people say there's not a lot of balance in life, but you want to have the balance between your operating hours and your free hours. And so I'm not saying that, hey, I want to work 30 hours. No, I'm saying overall, when we take the entire world, when we take the entire time of one single person in their entire lifetime, we want to have a great balance over that. I'm not talking about 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. I'm looking at the entire timeline. Okay, we optimizing for 100 years. This is why it's really important for us to have the right systems, not for us to just to think about revenue. So after we have understood now that the biggest mistake most businesses make is spend all their energy building exceptional revenue operating system only to lose it after immediately that sale, the winning customer is only the beginning, by the way. Okay? Winning customers is only the beginning. The next enterprise operating system determines whether revenue becomes a one-time transaction or a long-term enterprise asset. It's like if you make one client so happy, they're extremely happy, they want to stay with you. It's like this person understands me, they delivered results, they help me, they want to stay with you. And this is why I have three big questions that you must ask yourself. What output does this operating system produces? What capabilities create that output? And what constraints limit that output? And this not only goes in for your revenue generating system, but for every system. Which leads me on to the next system, which is really important. So once we have gotten the client, right? So now we have engineered all the predictability in the business. We have consistent demand coming in, consistent conversion. We are getting sales. We have money coming in. The next question is, let's say, how well we can fulfill those clients, how well we can actually help them, how well we can remain them staying inside of our business. So chapter 6, the client success operating system, which is called the CSOS. Why customer success is actually enterprise value creation. Imagine you own a factory. Every day a truck arrives, raw materials enter, and the factory manufactures products. Then, instead of shipping the finished products to customers, the factory throws half of them into the trash. Now, for a second, this sounds really ridiculous, I understand, yet thousands of businesses do that exactly. They spend enormous amount acquiring customers only to lose them through poor onboarding, communication, expectations, delivery, implementation, follow-up, and measurement. Founders call this the churn. Architects call it the value destruction. So the biggest mistake founders make is ask almost any founder what happens after somebody buys. And this is what I said again. It's like we are all optimizing for revenue. We all look at the revenue, we all look at profitability, we all look at the margins, but nobody asks the question is what happens after somebody buys? What happened when that specific agency took you from 50K all the way to 150K? What has changed? What happened right after you got all those clients? What has happened? Because guys, think about it this way. It's not that that person is going to help you to get from 50 to 150K and you got from 50 to 150K for 1 month. Next month, you're going to be doing the same 150K again because now you have the key to doing it, right? So now you're going to have the same amount of clients coming inside of your business. So the big question is like, let's say that's 5 clients extra. 5 clients extra means you need extra time, extra hours, extra fulfillment for that 1 month. But then there's the next month. And then again, we have more clients coming in and more clients coming in and more clients coming in. And eventually what happens, you are holding the weight of the world that you cannot handle. And so that's why I always ask, what happens right after somebody buys? Do we have an engineered system? When they buy, they come in and we know exactly what we need to do. We know exactly how to fulfill them. Our fulfillment is standardized. I have a systems in place. I can help them. We can get them to the results. They will be happy. And guess what? I can take 10 more, 20, 50, 60. We can take more clients. Most responses sound like this. We onboard them, we send them a welcome email, and we invite them to the Slack. That's a huge problem. Notice they are describing activities, not actual systems. They're not like, hey, we place them in a system, then this is what's happening. Activities rarely produce predictable outcomes. Okay? Activity is not what produces the outcome. In most case scenarios, activities are just activities. They're not outcome producing components. But however, systems are. Systems do produce results. So always the question comes, how good is your system after somebody actually buys? So the sale is not the goal, guys. The sale is just the start of the big promise you have made. It's like you have promised somebody the promised land. Now it's like, can you actually get them to the promised land? Or is it a case that you are even confused, where is the fucking promised land? So the sale is not the goal here. The objective of a sale isn't just revenue. Sales is it's not just revenue. It is transferring a customer into a system capable of producing transformation. We are placing the customer into a system where we are transforming them and we are giving them the promised land we promised them. That's the next system you need to have. The moment money changes hands, the revenue operating system has completed its responsibilities. So now, revenue operating system has done its job. Immediately, the next system comes in play. The client success operating system takes over. Now it's like, okay, so from one system, we moved into the second system. Landing the airplane isn't the end of the journey. Passengers still need baggage, transport, and support. Right? So like landing the plane, it's one system. The pilot did a great job. Now all the people, the passengers are off boarding from the plane. They have their bags and everything. Now they still need to get their baggage. They still need to go through. So it's like airports have their systems. It's like, imagine there is no timetable when the planes are going to arrive. Right? They don't have that system. So like now it's even causing us more confusion, more stress for the clients, more things happening because there's no timeline. We don't know what gate we are doing, where we are going. We are just asking people. We are asking team, the team on the ground, we asking them questions like, hey, excuse me, I'm flying to XYZ country and I'm looking for what gate is that? And then they have to dispatch and they'll be like, okay, what gate is this on your computer? What it shows? And then now it has overload. Bad system. Now, instead of that, we have a dashboard. You go through the gate. We have a system in place making sure that all the passengers are safe while they're on in an airport. So they go through like a security system itself. The security system is usually the checks. They go through, they can see consistently dashboards about the gate information, what's happening lifetime. Now that's a system. But imagine if that system doesn't exist, and the moment somebody gets in an airport, we have built a great building and it's a great airport. We have, yes, we talked about security, and we didn't talk about how smoothly, efficiently that customer that goes into our airport can go from point A to point B and potentially fly to point C, and then from point C, it's the next airport's execution. Everything has to work in a system, guys. Okay, so immediately the client success operating system takes over from your revenue generating system. Okay, so landing the airplane isn't the end of the journey. You already know that. So what is the client success? Most companies confuse client success with customer support. There's a big difference. This is a critical error. So like a lot of new companies that have started, new founders, they don't really understand what is a client success versus customer support. Support is reactive. It solves problems for the customer. It's like they call you, hey, I didn't get an update. We solved that problem. Hey, I don't see the project moving. We move in the project. It's solving the problem. That's all customer support. And most of you probably have you can actually reflect inside of your business that, yes, most of you have customer support. Client success is proactive. It engineers outcomes and guarantees the customer achieves what they actually have purchased. It's a big difference. It's like we get them the results. Support is just we are reactive to solving their problems they currently have. So if you add them to a Slack and they don't know what the heck is going on, what is the next thing, what system are you placing me in, what is going on, then you just have customer support, which is a big issue. Every business really sells transformation. Doesn't matter what you do, every single business in the world sells transformation. Yes, even McDonald's sells transformation. They sell from going hungry to deliciously filled. Every single thing is transforming you. You buy a car, there's a transformation happening. You're going from point A to point B. Instead of walking, you are currently driving. That's a transformation. Everything is doing transformation. Your watch, you can upgrade the watch and suddenly you have higher status. Again, transformation. You may go to the grocery store. You go from an empty fridge to a filled fridge. Transformation. The transformation curve, right? Every purchase. Let's just go back a little bit here. People don't buy products, software, or service. They buy version of themselves. Your business is responsible for delivering the progress. Not only progress, but the actual transformation itself. The faster customer experiences that progress, the healthier your operating system becomes. I would just also put delivering not only the progress, but the transformation. And the faster customer experiences that transformation, the healthier your operating system actually becomes. Next one. The transformation curve. Every purchase follows a journey. Purchase. So that's that we end the first system. The revenue generating system has ended, the revenue operating system. Now purchase, expectation, first win, momentum, transformation, and advocacy. Okay. The client success equation. Client success is the product of 5 capabilities inside of your business. Expectation alignment, activation speed, execution quality, progress visibility, and relationship trust equals long-term client success. These are really important aspects when it comes down to client success. If you really want to take care of your clients, if you really care about your clients, if you really have taken the money from your clients to give them the results, then this is your time to start designing systems around your business. You need to have an equation that is responsible for client success. You need to have it. If you don't have it, you're not really caring about your clients, because saying, well, I didn't know about it is not good enough. Because if you do care about your clients, and if you did know that your clients exist, then you should also know how can you get them actual success. If you didn't know about it, then now you know about it, and now it's time to change that. So it's not just enough for you to watch this and be like, yeah, that sounds great, great systems and great this and great that. It's actually knowing that you want to change. And if you don't have this right now, then this is the time to think about it. The 5 layers of client success operating system. Okay, again, we're getting into architecture. Expectation architecture, really important, guys, really important. Let me give you a couple examples before let me just break this first down and then give you some examples. Before the sale, align on what success looks like, what it requires, who is responsible for what, clear expectations, eliminate future friction. So let's say I going in a partnership with a partner. Okay, I'm going in a partnership with a partner. I'm just going to give you a business sense in this as well, because eventually you're going in a partnership with that specific client you're doing. You can call it a client. I call it a partnership. It's a business deal you have made with somebody, and eventually they paid you to get something. So it's a partnership. It's a business deal. So let's say me and you go into the partnership, or I go with somebody in a partnership. We start working. We start building a company. We don't have an agreement, expectations, nothing. We start generating money in the company. This has actually happened. And suddenly the founder and his business partner, right, the co-founder and the founder doesn't say anything. He starts taking money from the bank account. He's like, yeah, I have personal expenses. I want to buy a car. I want to buy an apartment there and now. I just need the money. The co-founder was interested in a long-term game for building a huge company. He's like, wow, I was planning to build. Now we find out the founder's taking money. So now we are addressing the founder. It's like, hey man, it's like I've been closing for you. Like we've been closing together. I've been closing for the company. I've been doing like a lot of work, and now you're just taking the money. He's like, yeah, but I'm the founder of the company, so I take the money. This would never have happened, by the way, if we had agreement in place, expectations were really clear of what can somebody do, what can somebody not do. If we had the agreement, none of this ever had happened before then. None of this would happen. That agreement, those expectations prevent these things from happening. It's like saying, I get hired in a job, I give my life to the job. Like I give everything to the job, and I go and I was like, hey man, I've been doing this. Like I want to increase the commissions for myself. I want this and I want this and I want this, right? If I don't have clear expectation of what was expected from me, and let's say I go beyond and above, and a lot of people doing this currently as well. I find this good, but I find this also it comes with a bad. And I give absolutely everything. But if there was no expectations on the employer's side, if there's no expectation for employers, let's say the employer says, hey, you reach these KPIs, you do this for like XYZ months, you can come here, we can have a renegotiation, we're going to renegotiate your contract, we're going to put you higher. If that conversation wasn't happening before, and that conversation was not documented into an agreement, there's no accountability. There's nothing happening, by the way, guys. You can go into somebody that has happened before and you could say, hey, I have delivered like 7.5 million into the company and I have worked so hard. I have worked my ass off for the last 3 years. I want a raise, I want this. And you can simply get brushed off. But that would never happen if there was clear expectations of what was expected from me and what do I expect from you once I have achieved what I actually want. Okay? So the same has to happen. So like in the first scenario, let's say the partner, the founder and the co-founder has an agreement saying, hey, once we generate XYZ money, like this is where the money is going, this is what we're doing, and there's a plan in place, there's a allocation for the budget and everything. Those things will never happen. The reason they happen is because there's no clear expectation of what the relationship is looking like. So let me get back to the example. Expectation architecture. Before the sale, align on what success looks like, okay? What it requires and who is responsible for what. Clear expectations, eliminate future friction. Next one, activation engineering. How quickly does someone experience their first meaningful win? Elite companies obsess over reducing time to value. It's like once they can see their first win, once you document the first win, you can show them the first win. Hey, we just got the first win through the door. Amazing. Then now it's like strengthens the relationship. So that first strengthening of the relationship really matters. So we have to ask ourselves questions. How quickly does someone experience their first meaningful win? And that's what you need to obsess with. It's like how fast I can get them to the first result. It's like I need them to see the first result to give me more trust, so we have more trust. Okay, so like I need that. Next one, transformation engineering. Deliver progress, not just deliverables. Customers should always know where they are going, and what is actually next. If the customers are confused with what's happening, most agencies, most companies are just adding somebody in the Slack, and then the customer is almost chasing the team, the company for what's happening, updates and results. Really important to understand here the distinction between a productive company that is engineered for client success and a company that has placed somebody in a really weak, poor system. The difference is like in a really well engineered company, very great architecture, very great systems, is you have activation engineering, transformation engineering, relationship engineering, value expansion, and expectations of everything. In a poor, you just add them really in some place, and then the customer is actually doing heavier work than you because they're chasing communication, they're chasing everything. Okay, so transformation engineering delivers progress, not just deliverables. Customers should always know where they are going, and what is next. Really important. If you don't have that now, you should have it. Number 4, relationship engineering. Trust is built through consistency, transparency, and reliability. Relationships do not scale accidentally. They do not scale accidentally. They scale through intentional systems. Like, you can look at any relationship, guys. Wife and husband, daughter and father, daughter and mother, daughter and daughter, son and son, brother and brother, sister and sister. You look at anybody, any human relationship. We all have human engineering. The human engineering is responsible for what the relationship is going to look like. And if we don't have engineered the expectations, we haven't engineered the activation, the transformation, the relationship, and what the value is going to look like and everything else, everything just goes sideways. That's why a lot of people get divorced. It's because there was no expectation in the relationship. What was responsible? There was no agreement. And most of you be like, what type of relationship needs agreement? Well, we all need relationship agreements, because those agreements help us to understand how we can serve better for the other person and how do they serve better for us, in return serving better for them. And if there is no such agreement, it's really hard for us to understand what's expected. So sometimes your wife could say, do X, Y, Z, when you already do something else. So it could be endless doing X, Y, Z's, and you could be endlessly complaining to your wife, and your wife could be endlessly complaining to you, and you could be both in a stress situation, arguing and doing things. It's because there was no expectations. You may be a man with a lot of money, and you may get a woman, but the woman was interested in your money. So like, if there is no expectation, what does that look like? So if you're interested in my money, then I want X, Y, Z. Okay? And I'm fine with you interested in money. But don't get upset if she was interested in money. You didn't know she was interested in money, because there was no clear expectation set from the beginning. It's like, hey, why are you in this relationship? I like you, but I also like your money. Okay, great. So if you like my money, then I expect X, Y, Z. Right? I expect X, Y, Z. I expect us going on dinners. I expect us on, you not asking me all the questions, because like, hey, I'm going to get you what you want, but I expect something in return. Like maybe no questions asked, or like around certain things. I expect to be left alone when I need my own time. Like there's expectations. You engineer it, right? It's really important, because then that relationship is like, when somebody crosses the line, we can go back to the agreement initially we had drafted. Okay? Right. Moving on. So value expansion. We actually skipped one. Relationship engineering. So trust is built through consistency, transparency, and reliability. Relationship does not scale accidentally. They scale through intentional systems. Really important. I kind of mentioned that already. But trust is built through consistency, transparency, and reliability. And that comes down to the expectations again. Next one is value expansion. A healthy CSOS system transforms customer into long-term enterprise asset through renewals, upsells, referrals, and community. Okay, so like once you have everything engineered, your customers should give you more customers, more revenue. One customer can give you 20 customers, and one customer also can give you $20 million, and one customer can transform your entire business and entirely explode your company to the next level. But it always comes down to how well you can deliver. So, executive dashboard. Every CEO should be able to answer these questions weekly. How long until customer experiences their first measurable win? How many customers are healthy, at risk, or critical? What percentage complete onboarding? What percentage achieve the promised outcome? What is our net revenue retention? And then we get into the failure symptoms. If your CSOS is failing you, you will see customers disappearing after onboarding, support tickets are increasing, results becoming inconsistent, testimonials and referrals are declining, revenue becomes increasingly dependent on new acquisition because retention has failed. Executive principle here. Revenue creates transactions, clients, success creates enterprise value. A lot of people look at it differently. Most founders and CEOs, I wouldn't say most CEOs. That was not where I was going, because a lot of elite CEOs wouldn't look at it the way it is. But a lot of wannabe CEOs, wannabe big founders, understand different. They understand that the biggest value is created once we have great marketing system, putting more clients, we put in more money. That's not it. Client success is what actually creates enterprise value. It's like you can have 10 clients, but if those 10 clients are all very unhappy, it's much better having one client that's super happy than 10 clients that are unhappy. Okay, so this is why it really matters to have a client success engineering around. So anyone can generate a sale, but few companies consistently create transformations. The organizations that master transformation don't just retain customers, they create advocates. And advocates become the most efficient growth engine any business can build. This operating system does not exist to perform work, it exists to produce predictable business outcome. So now we understand how businesses acquire customers and how they transform customers. But there's another question every growing company eventually faces. How do you deliver consistent quality as the business becomes more complex? Because customers increase, sales increase, numbers increase, responsibilities increase, team increases. How do we, as a business, consistently deliver quality results even when business becomes more complex? Because without consistent execution, even the best strategy eventually collapses. That's why the next enterprise operating system may be the most misunderstood of all of them. Okay, so the chapter number 7 is the operations operating system. It's called the OOS, engineering and predictable execution inside the entire business. This chapter is entirely around engineering predictable execution inside of your company. It's really important. If you look at some of the biggest companies like JP Morgan, Citibank, Tesla, Jeff Bezos with his Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, they all have overall a predictable execution. And so to get to that, you need to engineer it. So this entire chapter is like, how can we engineer predictable execution? So predictability leads to better results, better feedback, and better feedback can improve overall systems. I can improve the overall execution as well. So now I want you to imagine buying a Rolex. Okay, Rolex stands for perfect execution. You expect perfection, you expect dynamics, you expect beauty, you expect status. Every watch, every customer, every country, every day. Imagine now if Rolex would say something like, sometimes our watches work and sometimes they don't. People would think that's ridiculous, I'm not buying a Rolex. You wouldn't even think about buying one. Now think about your business. Can every customer expect the same quality? I mean, not even by 1% less. Can every employee perform consistently? Can every project be delivered predictably? Can every process produce the same outcome regardless of who performs it? If the answer is no, you don't have an operations problem. You have an architectural problem inside of your business. The biggest lie about operations is this. Most founders believe operations means project management. We need to manage projects. So tasks, Asana, ClickUp, Monday.com, documentation, checklists. No, those are just tools for managing projects. Operations is something much, much, much bigger. Operations is the discipline of engineering predictability. That's it. Those tools are just managing that predictability. That's it. Predictability is the most important thing when it comes to execution. Is how predictably we can execute, how predictably we can go to the gym, how predictably we can eat healthy. Predictability. Because businesses don't scale through effort, they scale through repeatability. How predictable and on what scale of repeatability we can reproduce the same results. So it's like you can make 100K one day, but can you make it every day, right? Is it predictable? Can we repeat the same process? We can get 3 great client testimonials, but can we repeat the process with every single client? So why businesses become really chaotic? Every founder has experienced this. At first, everything works. You have few clients, 5 clients, 6, 7, 8, 9 clients. Communication is easy. Everyone knows what's happening. Then 10 clients, 20, 50, 100, and suddenly messages get missed, deadlines start to slip, quality becomes inconsistent, customers receive different experiences, people start asking who was responsible. And most of the times we forgot. And most of the time somebody would be, you know what, maybe somebody else was doing it. Maybe I thought he was doing it. I thought that you're going to be doing this differently. And the founder starts also blaming the people. But the biggest problem is here not to blame the people, not to blame the company, blame the architect. Okay? Blame the architect because the architect was the one who actually created that architecture. People rarely create chaos. Poor systems allow chaos to actually happen. When you create an architecture, that architect, when he signs that architectural drawing and he says that it's perfect, it's flawless, he stands behind it. So if something happens, let's say a child goes and something happens to a child, there's like, let's say, a bigger gap than it should be. He should actually know the gaps where a child cannot slip through the gaps, and child slips through the gaps and he hurts himself. The responsibility is of an architect, because an architect is the main person that signed off that building. It's not the guy who constructed it. It's the architect. Because if the gaps was exactly how he said, let's say there's measurements, there's architectural measurements that they need to fit based on the constitution of that government, based on the architectural regulations, based on that dimensions of certain, either it's commercial or private building, there's certain measurements that they need to actually fit into. If those measurements are not what they're supposed to be, it's the architect's problem. And so if you promise somebody results and you cannot engineer predictable execution over your entire business, it's the people's fault, the customer's fault, it's the architect's fault. Because the architect is the responsible for the actual architecture which he created. People rarely create chaos. Poor systems, poor architecture in the business allow chaos to emerge. It allows systems to be weak, and those weak systems are what create chaos. The hidden cost of variability, okay? Variability is the enemy of scale. Imagine ordering the same coffee every morning. Monday perfect, Tuesday cold, Wednesday wrong order, Thursday excellent, Friday terrible. Would you keep buying it? Probably not, because you cannot expect the same coffee. Customers don't evaluate averages. They evaluate the consistency. They remember inconsistency, but consistency is what builds the trust. So variability destroys trust. Operations exist to reduce variability, not creativity, not innovation, but the variability. It's really important. You want that consistency happening throughout. You don't want to go to a restaurant and you want to ask them for medium rare cooked steak and they serve you uncooked. Then they serve you overcooked. Then they serve you chicken instead of steak. You will not go back there for the same experience because there was no consistency. So what operations actually produce consistency, okay? And what operations actually produces? Operations does not produce tasks. Operations produce confidence. When operations function well, employees know exactly what to do and how to do it. Managers know what to monitor. Customers know what to expect. Leaders know what will happen. Confidence is created through predictability. Predictability is created through systems. So you always will come down to the question of how predictable are your systems. The purpose of operations is the operation transforms strategy into repeatable execution. Strategy creates direction. Operations create consistency. Without operations, strategy remains an idea. Execution becomes random at that point. So the operational formula. I hope like this makes sense. End of the day, like just to drill down to the core, is we need to have systems, predictable systems, system that is responsible for a predictable outcome. At that point, that's where we gain the momentum. That's where we gain confidence. That's where our employees trust in our systems. That's where our managers trust in our company. That's where our leaders trust in the mission, in the vision, okay? Because we can produce predictable outcomes. Nobody wants to trust in a company where one client is super happy and another client is unhappy and wants to kill the company, okay? Nobody wants to trust in that because it's like we cannot expect predictability in the company. So the operations formula, execution quality equals standardization, multiplied by visibility, multiplied by accountability, multiplied by feedback, and continuous improvement. If one of these approaches zero, execution collapses. So execution quality is really standardization, how standardized your system is. So like how standardized we can produce the result. When you have standardized execution, that doesn't matter what is the input, will always bring the same output. Okay, like there's a standard process. We can the input could be client one, it could be two clients, it could be three clients at the same time. It will produce the same outcome. Then we have visibility. So we know exactly what is happening. We know who is accountable for that specific completion. We also know the feedback. So which means like we know what is the feedback loop, what needs to be adjusted, what needs to be changed. We know that, and then we continuously can improve. That's how we get predictable. If one of these approaches zero, then the execution literally collapses. So layer one, standardization. Standardization does not remove creativity, it removes unnecessary decision making. So imagine every pilot landing airplane differently. Would you feel safe? Let's say somebody says, well, I have to do 3 loops before I land the plane. One guy says, well, I have to do a humpy loop before I land the plane. One says, I have to land the plane with my with eyes closed. One says, hey, I'm going to land the plane and I'm going to get up and then I'm going to land again. And one guy says, instead of like just a normal landing, I'm just going to go all the way down aggressively, I'm going to point the face of the plane all the way down and we're just going to go full speed and then I'm going to try to do it. Would you feel safe? Because every time the question will become, what is this pilot going to do? Standardization does not remove that, right? Standardization means we still get it the same way. The pilot is still in control. He can still be really creative if something goes wrong. It removes the necessary decision making. It's like, hey, we're following the protocol. Imagine every pilot landing differently is the problem that creates people not feeling safe, okay? Critical work should never depend on a personal preference. It should depend on a proven system. It cannot be like one person chooses how to do that specific task or how they're going to execute. Standardization creates that reliability. It creates it how the process has to be executed. Layer 2, visibility. You cannot improve what you cannot see. So one of the biggest reasons businesses struggle is this: leadership has no visibility of what's happening. Projects disappear, deadlines drift, problems remain hidden. Good operations create that transparency. They know exactly what's happening. From point A to point Z, they can monitor, they have the dashboards, they have everything. Great operations make invisible work visible. Everyone should know what's happening, who's responsible, what's blocked, what's late, and what's completed, and what needs a revision. Layer 3, accountability. Accountability isn't a punishment, it's an actual ownership. Like people say, well, I'm accountable. It's like too much discipline. It's like a punishment. No, it's like an ownership. You own that specific execution. Many businesses confuse accountability with the blame. Blame asks who caused this. Accountability asks who owns to improve this. It's like you are responsible for improving this. It's not like, hey, you are the main person why things are not working. It's like you are the main person that needs to improve it, needs to monitor it, needs to make it better. Ownership accelerates execution. Like in really high companies, everybody loves ownership. Because if you don't have ownership, it's like, well, I thought he's responsible, and we're never going to get to the point of how can we improve it. Blame slows the execution. Elite organizations design accountability into an actual system, okay? Layer 4, which is the most important part. Every operating system requires feedback. Imagine driving a car without seeing the road. Impossible. Businesses operate the same way sometimes. Feedback tells the organization what's working, what's breaking, what's improving. Without feedback, small problems become expensive problems, and small problems become big problems, and big problems start to slowly destroy the business from inside. Operations create that learning loop. It's like your company is like a car that needs to know where they're driving. Layer number 5, continuous improvement, which is the second part of a feedback, which is really important. This is where operations become really strategic. Most companies create process once. They ignore them later on, and elite companies on the other side continuously improve the process. Sometimes some companies create the process, they have the process, but they absolutely just ignore the process. On the other hand, elite companies consistently will improve that process until it gets actually dialed into the letter T. Every project teaches, every mistake informs, every delay reveals the friction that's happening inside the business. Every complaint exposes opportunity. Processes should evolve constantly. They should never maybe next year we improve it, maybe next month. Consistency is the key when it comes to growing a business. Operations are never finished. They are consistently being engineered and improved. So the silent killer is the process depth. Every shortcut, every undocumented task, every inconsistent handoff, every missing checklist, every manual workaround creates a process depth. The interest compounds daily, and eventually the business slows down. Employees become frustrated, quality declines, founders work longer. The answer isn't people. It's accumulated process depth. Elite CEOs regularly eliminate process depth before it becomes an organization friction. Things that you could be doing now, things that need to be done now, that are left for later, things that you close eyes on, is the depth you are building inside of your company. And so like you may look at it and be like, yes, we don't have the right client engineer system that like helps the clients to get consistent results. And yes, when we're going to grow bigger, obviously I'm going to afford to get somebody in and he's going to create a system. What you are doing, you are closing eyes. And because you're closing eyes on that, that's becoming your depth currently. And that goes with absolutely everything, not just how you fulfill customers. It's also how you bring revenue in. If you say, hey, we could have that system, but we're not having the system, it's you have closed your eyes on that. And that's the reason it becomes your depth. Why founders become bottlenecks? If someone asks your team, how do we do this? And the answer is you are the operating system. And that becomes really dangerous in most businesses. Businesses dependent on memory cannot actually scale. Your goal isn't to become indispensable. Your goal is to become unnecessary for a routine execution. That's what it comes down to, flawless execution. It comes to predictable, engineered execution. It's not that the person is like, we have to have a system, we have to have things in place, we have to have people in place. If you, the founder, is the main thing that is the system, then you become the bottleneck inside of your business, and that's the reason you cannot grow. So the execution pyramid, this is really important. I also have drawn a little pyramid to actually show you. So execution pyramid, daily tasks, checklists, SOPs, playbooks, operation systems, and business architecture. Most companies improve tasks, architects improve the entire system. Improve the system, and that's how your business starts to grow. Every task improves automatically when you improve the system. So we have the daily task, which is all the way down here, and that's what everybody's focusing. You shouldn't be focusing on the lower hanging fruit. You should be focusing on the highest hanging fruit that is responsible for the lowest hanging fruit, which is the business architecture. You have operational systems, playbooks, SOPs, checklists, and then the daily task. Most of the founders are focusing on the lowest hanging fruit inside the business. This is why they never get to the highest hanging fruit, which is the daily tasks. It's like, what do I need to do today? What I have to do today? What can I do today? It's all about the daily. It's like, hey, I have to answer XYZ emails. I have to respond to the team. I have to do this. I have to do that. And that's the main reason why most of them are stuck. Executive dashboard, right? Every CEO should know where are projects slowing, where are handoffs failing, where do mistakes repeat, which process consumes the most time, where does work wait, where is quality inconsistent, which process depends on one person, which workflow creates the most customer complaints, and which bottleneck limits the throughput. This is the dashboard that CEO must have in order for them to understand what is happening inside of the business. Failure symptoms. If operations is failing, projects take longer, quality varies, employees improvise consistently, like let's just improvise, let's just try to do something similar to like the previous client. Deadlines become unreliable, customers receive inconsistent experiences, managers become firefighters, and founders answer repetitive questions. Okay, if you have the same question being repeated again and again and you don't have a system for that, it just means your business is currently either stopped working or slowing down to work. Executive principle is this: businesses don't scale because people work harder. Businesses scale because systems make excellent execution repeatable. That's the purpose of operations, not the activity, but the actual predictability of the business. Chapter number 8, the people operating system, which is called the POS, engineering organizational capability. It's really important to have capability inside of your business. Capability means how many customers we can take, how many people we can hire, how many things do we need to do. It gives you the capability of how much things can actually get done inside of your business. So for this entirely, I want to imagine two companies. Let's say, both generate 5 million per year, both have 20 employees, both sell the same service, both have similar prices, but one company consistently grows, the other constantly keeps struggling. Same market, same offer, same opportunity. So what is the main difference here? Most founders immediately answer better people. But that's usually wrong. The difference isn't the people, the difference is the system that people operate inside. Great organizations don't rely on extraordinary people. They create environments where extraordinary people can succeed. They create environments where even ordinary people consistently perform extraordinarily because they're responsible for creating a system. When the system can be the best system that produces the best results, you can place anybody in there because the system will be the main thing that produces the result. That person that you have placed in there is the person behind that system. Yes, with a better person, you can get better outcomes and maybe more efficiency, but the system is eventually responsible for great results. That is the purpose of a people's operating system. The biggest myth about hiring. Whenever a business struggles, founders often say, we just need better people. Let's challenge that a little bit. Imagine signing Lionel Messi. Now place him in a team with no coach, no training, no strategy, no communication, no structure, no performance review, no role clarity, and no expectations from anybody. Okay, would he still be great? Of course, but would the team become elite? No. Individual talent cannot compensate for organizational dysfunction forever. Organizations outperform individuals because systems outperform effort. You don't have 80 hours in a day. You have only 24. So like effort is not going to work alone. Eventually something needs to be much higher than the effort, and that's where a system comes in place. So stop building teams and build organizational capabilities. This is one of the most important shifts you will ever make inside of your business. You are not building a team, you are building organizational capability. What is the difference? A team is a collection of individuals. A capability is the organizational ability to consistently produce results. People leave, capability remains. That's why enterprise companies invest so heavily in systems, training, leadership, and knowledge transfer. They're not trying to build dependence on people, they're trying to build a dependence on an actual system. They're building dependence on a capability. Okay, that's the main difference. So the CEO's real job is not to have activity job. It's not to do the bricklayering. Most founders believe their responsibility is to manage people. It's not. That's still bricklayering. You're still layering bricks, but your job is the entire architecture. Your responsibility is to design an organization where people can succeed, and that goes placing people in systems. There's a huge difference between a manager and manage people, artists design environments. Think about Formula One. Driver matters, but without engineers, without even the pit stop crew, without data, strategy, communication, processes, telemetry, and everybody else, the fastest driver won't win. Businesses work exactly the same way. You have to have everything working flawlessly. If you have the best, fastest driver, he goes into pit stop and the pit stop takes 5 minutes instead of seconds, we have a huge problem. Because the driver wasn't the fault. It was the system in which the driver was placed in. So the organizational capability equation. Organizational capability is right people, right role clarity, leadership, accountability, knowledge, and continuous development. If any one of these collapses, capability collapses, and everything else in the company starts to go in a decline. So notice what's missing. Motivation. Motivation fluctuates, but systems endure. Motivation is not gonna eventually get you successful. You need to have something way above the motivation. You need to have the capability to consistently drive yourself to an excellence. Motivation basically says, hey, today I feel motivated. If tomorrow I don't feel motivated, then the results don't get done. And we cannot depend on motivation. This is why systems need to be engineered. Systems is not a motivation. You can place somebody in the system, they need to execute. That's it. The 6 layers of the people's operating system. So layer 1 is talent architecture. Okay, so hiring isn't about filling vacancies. Hiring is about designing capability. Every hire should answer one question. What capability does this person add to the organization? Capability thinking changes recruitment completely. Capabilities can scale, job titles don't scale. Layer 2. Role architecture. One of the biggest causes of underperformance isn't lack of talent. It's the role itself and ambiguity around the role. Every role should be defined. Purpose, responsibilities, decision authority, expected outputs, performance indicators, and dependencies. Um, gonna give you an example around this. Sometimes a founder gets really drawn, like sinking in the tasks and the projects and everything he has to do, and he was like, "Oh, I need to hire somebody." And so now, because there's no role architecture, there's no decision authority, how we make decisions, performance indicators, KPIs, systems, and training and processes, he just hires somebody because he feels under a lot of pressure, fulfilling a lot of things. He hires somebody in. That person will never succeed in that business, and then the founder is going to say, "Well, he wasn't he wasn't an A player. He was more like a C player, and I didn't get a lot out of him." That's the main reason why that person specifically failed. It's because there was no system in the first place. The role architecture is one of the biggest causes of underperformance. And it's not that you didn't get the right person, it's that your role was not designed for success. It was designed for chaos. Every role should be defined. And there should have been clear expectations of what is expected for that specific role, okay? Layer 3, leadership architecture. Leadership isn't about inspiration. Leadership, it's like you can inspire your people as much as you want. You can motivate them every single day. But when the day comes with demotivation, when they are not inspired, you need to go back and lift them. So that means that entire system depends on you again. Leadership is about creating clarity. The leader's job is not to have all the answers. The leader's job is to ensure the organization always knows where we are going, why it matters, what success looks like, and what happens next. And that's created again in systems. Layer 4, accountability architecture. Most companies treat accountability as punishment. Enterprise companies treat accountability as ownership. Ownership means I am responsible for the outcome, not I completed the task. Ownership accelerates the execution. Okay? Like you need to have accountability, and the biggest word I would say ownership and then accountability. Because that means when you place somebody, it's helping them to understand that they're also responsible for improving the system. It's not to give them the blame, it's to improve and get better. It's like, in order for you to drive, it's not to just drive. It's not to just buy a car for you to drive. It's for you to be a better driver. Layer 5, knowledge architecture. The most valuable asset inside of your company isn't your software or office, it's the organizational knowledge. Enterprise companies consistently convert personal knowledge into organizational knowledge through playbooks, frameworks, training documentation, and decision libraries. Layer 6. Like going back to layer 5, it's really important. It's your knowledge, eventually what you learn has to be transferred into actual organization. That organization, when they access that knowledge, they can grow with you as well. If there's no knowledge inside the company, no process, no playbooks, nothing, it becomes a big problem. Layer 6, leadership development. Leadership is engineered. Every future leader should have development plans, coaching, decision frameworks, and increasing responsibility. The greatest companies don't wait until they need leaders. They build them years in advance. That's the main thing. It's like they're getting up the ladder, and that's how leaders are being built. That's why sometimes we say, hey, you have to climb the corporate ladder. It's because that corporate ladder eventually helps them to become leaders. Because from the beginning, when they got hired in the system. That system actually shows them the strengths and the weaknesses and how can they become stronger. So, also, I want you to understand that leadership architecture and leadership development are completely two different things. It's mostly the same, but it's still different. Leadership architecture is about creating clarity. It's about not having all the answers. It's about understanding the mission, the vision, where we're going, and how everybody fits into that mission and the vision itself. Okay? Then leadership development is how you develop the leader itself. It goes into the coaching, decision frameworks, and the responsibilities, ownership, risk management, task management. Like it goes into absolutely everything. It helps to develop the leader, where the leadership architecture is most about understanding the mission, where we are going, how leaders fit into it, how the team fits into it, and everybody else. Okay, one is like kind of visionary, another one is self-development. Executive dashboard. Every CEO should know how many critical roles depend on one individual, which capabilities are weakest, how long does it take for new employees to become productive, how many future leaders are being developed, where is knowledge concentrated, which department requires the most supervision, and which teams consistently outperform, and why. Okay? And then the failure symptoms here. If the people operating system is weak, then you have high turnover, founder dependency, managers constantly escalate decisions, repeated hiring mistakes, slow onboarding, poor delegation, low ownership, inconsistent performance, and knowledge disappears when employees leave. So, executive principle. Companies don't scale because they hire great people. Companies scale because they build systems that allow great people to consistently create value and help ordinary people perform at highest level. That's organizational capability. The purpose of people's operating system is not to manage employees here. It's to engineer an organization that consistently creates value regardless of individual personalities. When people become capable, that's when people can start to also accelerate their own personal growth. When leadership becomes architecture itself, that's when we can develop better leaders. When knowledge becomes institutional, that's when we can create better people. Growth stops depending on actual heroes at that stage and starts depending on the organization itself. By now, we built 4 enterprise operating systems. So once one creates revenue, one creates customer transformation, one creates predictable execution. One builds organizational capability. So now we have 4 systems. I'm going to outline them again. So one, okay. So now we have 4 systems. We have revenue, customer transformation, predictable execution, organizational capability. But none of these systems survive without one critical resource, which is capital. Every strategic decision ultimately competes for limited financial resources. So the chapter number 9 is the financial operating system, which is called the FOS, Engineering Financial Intelligence. So I want you to imagine 2 companies, both generate 10 million a year, both have similar margins, both have similar products, both have similar teams. 5 years later, one company is worth 15 million, the other is worth 150 million. The answer is, how is it possible? The answer isn't the revenue, the answer is capital and how well they allocated that capital. One company earned money, the other company deployed money. That is the difference that creates enterprise actual value as well. The biggest lie about finance is this. You can ask almost any founder, what does finances do? And most of them will tell you, it's for payroll. I can pay more I can pay more people. It's to pay down the taxes, invoices. It's to keep the mortgage. It's to keep the house. It's to maybe do some ads, right? Maybe to do some reports. None of those explain why finances actually exist. Those are just activities what you do when you receive the money. Finances exist for one reason, to allocate scarce resources toward the highest value opportunities, because the highest value opportunities eventually are your leverage that you can pull to grow the company to the next level. That's it. Everything else supports the objective. Everything else is just noise. Businesses don't run on revenue, they run on actual cash flow. So you need to understand this. Revenue is one of the most misunderstood metrics in the business. And this is where a rookie founder, a rookie startup founder, or a rookie CEO doesn't really understand. Revenue is not the thing that drives business. It's not. Revenue creates really excitement when you look at it, you're like, hey, Stripe, we have 2 million in Stripe, 5 million, we created boom, 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 whatever it is. Cash flow determines survival, actually. Imagine 2 million in contracts. Amazing. Now imagine every customer pays in 12 months. Could you pay out salaries tomorrow? No, probably not. Why? Because everything is spread over the next 12 months. And you said, hey, we closed just 2 million in contracts, but those 2 million is only going to be accessible in the next 12 months. Okay? So revenue doesn't pay bills, cash flow does. Many businesses fail while appearing successful. Hey, we just have 150 million in contracts, but hey, when you look at it, actually the cash flow that's coming in, it's not the same. Why? Because founders optimize revenue instead of actually liquidity. Liquidity matters more than just revenue itself. So the CEO's real currency is this. Here's another belief that destroys most CEOs. Most CEOs say it's what you do with the money. It's having the options at your disposal. Having optionality is what creates better decision making. When your only option is to optimize for more money, that doesn't grow the business. It just optimizes for more money. So optionality is the ability to make strategic decisions. Every dollar inside the business represents future choices. Hiring, marketing, technology, expansion, acquisition, innovation. Every financial decision either increases your future options and increases the future valuation of your company, or it reduces them. So finance isn't about continuing money. Finance is about preserving and expanding strategic freedom inside of the company. So financial operating system is this. The finance operating system transforms financial information into executive decisions. It's like when we look at what we have, we can make strategic decisions. It's not like this is the number we are working with. It's like what we have, budgeting and everything, is what we're working with. And then it's like, what is the highest leverage opportunity we currently have? Notice the wording, not reports, not spreadsheets, but decisions. Without finance, leadership operates on just created ideas, but maybe possibilities and thoughts. That's about it. With finance, leadership operates on evidence. Okay? The 5 layers of finance operating system. Layer 1, financial visibility. You cannot manage what you cannot see inside of your business. So if you only see the revenue number and nothing else, I kind of feel really bad at that stage, because if you only see the number that you are generating and you don't see the profitability, the margins and everything else, at that stage you are making really bad decisions. Many founders only check their bank account, and that isn't financial management, that's financial observation. You observe how much money is there. You don't observe what's left, what needed, what's the profitability, what's the profit margin, what's the liquidity. Like, you don't observe none of them, and it's really hard to make decisions. Okay, so visibility means understanding cash position, accounts receivable, accounts payable, recurring revenue, profitability, runway, burn rate, and operating margin. Depth, liquidity, because without them, every decision becomes just a guessing. And a guessing game is what puts most businesses in decay. Layer 2, capital allocation. This is where CEOs create enterprise value. Imagine you have 500K in a budget to allocate somewhere. Where should it go? It could go towards marketing, hiring, technology, research, product, or expansion. Every allocation creates opportunity, but here we have to understand also opportunity cost. Capital allocation is choosing what the business will become. It's like, yes, we can put in marketing, but what will the business become? Yes, we can put in hiring, what the business will become. Every pound invested today into something will shape tomorrow's organization. Layer 3, financial planning. Most founders create budgets. Enterprise organizations build financial models. Okay, we can create budgets, we can create numbers, but again, we need to think about systems. Financial models are systems. There's a difference. Budget describes spending, budget describes spending. Financial models are systems that predict reality. Great financial planning asks, what happens if revenue suddenly falls? That's a system. We're asking ourselves a question. What happens if revenue falls by 20%? Not necessarily can happen, but we can prepare for it. So what happens if we hire 5 executives? What happens if customer acquisition doubles? What happens if margin shrinks? The future cannot be predicted here, but scenarios can be prepared for. Prepared organizations move much faster, they're more intelligent, and much more durable to really hard. It's the same as a boxer. You're fighting another boxer, you're going to look at the game he's having. You're going to look at other fights. You maybe not going to prepare exactly for each punch he's going to throw and in the combinations and the sequence he's going to throw them, but you can prepare for every single scenario if it happens. Layer 4, performance intelligence. Numbers don't matter, interpretations do matter. A dashboard without context creates confusion. Metrics only become valuable when they improve decisions. Like, every decision has to have why behind. Why did the gross margin decline? Why did the cash conversion slowing? Why is customer acquisition increasing? Why is profitability changing? Finance should answer questions, not simply report numbers to you. So like, hey, something happens, is what's the reason behind it? What system is responsible for it? Layer 5, enterprise value creation. This is the highest level of finance. Most founders optimize annual profit. Enterprise CEOs optimize long-term value. Sometimes the correct decision reduces short-term profit, but may increase the profit in the long term. Increase more revenue, increase more growth, but you may suffer in the short term, but in the long term you grow, because it creates much greater enterprise value later. Hiring leadership, building technology, developing intellectual property, acquiring competitors, creating infrastructure. These investments may reduce today's earnings while dramatically increasing tomorrow's valuation. Finance is where today's sacrifices become tomorrow's enterprise. You need to know that. So profit is not the goal here. This may sound controversial. Profit is not the goal. Profit is the fuel. It's the same as F1. Fuel is not what drives the formula. The driver drives the formula. The fuel just lets the the driver to perform, right? And it's the same you need to understand. Profit enables investments. Investments enable capabilities. Capabilities enable growth. Growth creates enterprise value. Profit should continuously be converted into a stronger operating system. Okay? So you need to understand it's not the fighter itself. It's not the coaching that creates the fighter. It's usually the coaching helps the fighter to perform. And so the same for the profit. Profit is never the goal. It's like, what do we do with the profit that we actually make? It's not how much money is in the business. It's what we do with what is left over with the money we have in the business. The money could be coming 2 million in the business, but there's too much things to go out. So like, what do we do with the money that's left in the business? How do we allocate and how do we grow? And how can we identify the future opportunities that we need? Okay. So the financial flywheel, I want you to draw this right now. So revenue, cash flow, capital allocation, capability investment, stronger operating system, higher enterprise value, more revenue. Draw this right now. Money isn't the destination, by the way. Money strengthens the architecture. Better architecture creates better outcomes. Better outcomes create more money. And that has a compounding interest behind it. Why fast growth destroys businesses? Growth consumes a lot of capital. It's true. Hiring consumes capital. Marketing consumes capital. Technology consumes capital. Inventory consumes capital. Expansion consumes capital. If financial architecture doesn't evolve, growth eventually destroys liquidity. Many founders celebrate growth while unknowingly increase financial fragility. Enterprise CEOs ask a different question. Can the architecture support the growth? It's like, it doesn't matter with what you are doing, guys. You need to understand, like, if I get 100 clients, can the growth actually be supported? Like, if I get 100 clients, can I handle the 100 clients? It's not just a question of getting the clients. It's like, can the architecture of how I have built this business actually handle the 100 clients? Next one, financial leverage. Introducing another concept, right? So this is, now that you understand more about finances, we need to also speak about financial leverage. You can invest a lot of money in and allocate your budget to almost anything. The big question becomes, what is the financial leverage, right? So you can invest in automations, technology, leadership, intellectual property, systems, training. But the question is, every investment should increase the leverage, not simply increase the activity. It shouldn't make your life harder. It should make your life easier in the business. It should not make the team's life harder or more activities to do. It should make less activities, bigger leverage, bigger results, higher output. Okay, that's another concept that you need to understand when it comes to financial leverage. Yes, you may invest in ads, but will the ads eventually help you to scale the business, not only in terms of getting more clients, but in terms of handling the clients, in terms of like pulling the right leverage, maybe in automations, maybe in technology, maybe in software. The question always comes, will it make my life easier? Next one, executive dashboards that you should know. Every CEO should know immediately how much cash is available, how many months of runway exists, where is capital currently allocated, which investments produce the highest return, which department destroy value, where is cash trapped, what is our operating margin, what is our customer lifetime value, what is our acquisition playback period, and what is today's biggest financial risk. Notice again, these are strategic questions, not accounting questions. This all is to do with strategy. So some failing symptoms. How do you know when the finance operating system is weak? Constant cash shortages, late payroll, reactive budgeting, poor forecasting, the founder guesses instead of planning, profitable but cash poor. Growth creates a lot of stress as well on the systems, the people, the founder. Investment decision becomes emotional, expansion becomes really dangerous. These aren't accounting failures, they're failures in financial architecture itself. Executive principle is this: finance doesn't exist to record the past. Finance exists to shape the future. The past has informed you what you have done. The future is where the value is actually created now. I want you to imagine two companies. Company A generates 5 million in annual profit. The founder withdraws most of it. The company remains operationally similar every single year. Company B generates the same profit. Instead of extracting it, the CEO invests in leadership, technology, knowledge systems, automation, and training. Executive talent. 3 years later, revenue doubles, margins improve, the business becomes less dependent on the founder, valuation triple, same profit, different financial architecture. Okay, so like most people are going to buy the car, the Lamborghini. And then only some really who are building durable businesses will invest in growth. The financial operating system is this. Your finance operating system isn't responsible for protecting money. It's responsible for transforming financial resources into organizational capability. Every strategic advantage, every operating system, every innovation, every expansion ultimately depends on intelligent capital allocation. Money isn't what builds great companies. The decisions made with money actually do. It's not that, hey, we can have 5 million and there's going to be people that are going to go and spend it. And there's going to be people that are going to think about saving it. And then there's going to be people thinking about how could I make the 5 into 10 million. And there's going to be people thinking about how can I take the 5 million and make sure that I can feed not only this generation, the next generation, the next after that generation. It's the operation, it's the thoughts, it's the ideas, it's the concepts behind who has the money. We are all different. But ultimately growing a company becomes a question of what I'm going to do with the money. So we are now built 5 enterprise operating systems. So we have revenue create demand, client success creates transformation, operations create predictable execution, people create organizational capability, finance allocates the resources that strengthens every system. But modern enterprises require one more foundational capability before they can truly scale. Every operating system depends on information flowing accurately, quickly, and reliably. That responsibility belongs to the technology operating system. The technology operating system is the chapter 10, the final chapter. Engineering digital infrastructure. I want you to imagine walking into Amazon's headquarters, right? It's Monday morning, early morning, we start our work, we walk into Amazon's headquarters. Now you see every employee, and every employee decides to use a different software, a different decision-making path, a different CRM, a different communication tool, different reporting systems, different customer records, different project management platforms, different data, different dashboards. My question to you is, because everything is so different, it's not like symphony that everything flows seamlessly together. Everything is so different. Could Amazon function? And the answer is no, because everybody is doing something completely different, moving towards somewhere else, doing something different. Not because the people are incapable, but because the organization has lost its ability to think together as one. That's what technology really is. It's not a software, it's shared organizational intelligence. Think about it as a football team. Imagine each player thinks differently of how they want to play football. So let's say the coach has the main goal to put everything together like a beautiful symphony orchestra. Beautiful music, classical music, symphony. Flawless, working together, passes, long passes, strategy, playbacks, everything. But imagine if each player is actually going on the pitch and playing how they want. They take the ball, they want to run by themselves, they want to do everything themselves, and they are just crazy shooting, they don't think what they are doing, they just... Would the team be capable of actually winning the championship? Probably not. The best teams that win championships are the teams that work together, that understand each other. It's like throwing a ball knowing that your player will be there because they understood where they need to go when the pass is in the air. On the other side, a team that is working how they want, they would just pass somewhere to a different player that doesn't even need to receive your pass, and you would be thinking, well, they're going to be there, but they're not there because they're not the right player to be passing the ball. They're not the right strategy execution behind your pass. So the biggest lie about technology is this. Ask founders, what does technology do? Most of them sound like this. It automates, it saves time, and yes, there's some truth in that. It makes work easier. Those are the benefits. No, its purpose. Those are the actual purposes. Technology exists to create information flow. Information is the lifeblood of every organization. First is the sales, which is the bloodline, but lifeblood of every organization is also information. Without information, leaders can decide, employees can execute, managers can coordinate, finance can forecast, sales can prioritize, operations can improve. Technology is the infrastructure that moves information through the entire enterprise. The human body, imagine your nervous system disappeared tomorrow. Your muscle still exists, your heart still beats, your brain still works, but nothing communicates. Movement becomes impossible. Businesses experience exactly the same thing. Departments exist, people exist, processes exist, customers exist, but information doesn't move. The organization becomes disconnected. Technology is the nerve system connecting every operating system together. So technology doesn't create scale. This will surprise most people. Technology never scales businesses. It's not the AI that scales you. It's not the meta platform that scales you. It's the architecture that scales you. Technology amplifies the architecture itself. If your systems are broken, like your funnel is not what scales, right? If most of you think it's the funnel, it's the closer, it's the leadership team. No, those are just components. Technology amplifies the entire architecture of how those components have been created. If your systems are broken, technology simply helps you to fail faster. Think about CRM system. Thousands of companies buy Salesforce, thousands buy Hotspot, yet performance varies dramatically. Not everybody gets the same performance. Why? Because software isn't the competitive advantage. The operating model behind the software is the advantage. So the 5 layers of the technology operating system. Layer 1 is the data architecture. Everything begins with data, but data isn't information and information isn't intelligence. Let's define the difference. Data is raw facts, like it's raw information about a timeline. Information organizes facts. Intelligence transforms information into better decisions. Most companies collect enormous amount of data. Very few create intelligence based on the actual data. That's because architecture determines how information flows. Layer 2, system integration. One of the biggest killers of growth is disconnected systems, right? It's like you can have a system for each department, but if that department is not communicating together, it's like your marketing is not communicating with your sales, it's a huge problem. Now salespeople don't have the right information before the actual call happens so they can demonstrate the expertise and the experience. Because they don't have that connection, now you're losing more sales. Why? Because they don't have the connection together, okay? So operations has another, so finance has another, customer success has another, operations has another. Nobody agrees. Nobody trusts the numbers. Every meeting starts with which report is correct. That's not a people's problem. That's fragmented architecture. Enterprise organizations build integrated operation environments. Every operating system shares information. Every department speaks the same language. Eventually, you can have 100 departments. You can have 5 departments, but the goal is the same. To put the information in one dashboard so we can make more intelligent decisions. So everybody can access that information so they can also make more intelligent, more smarter decisions for the future growth of the company. Layer 3, automation engineering. Automation isn't about replacing people, it's about removing friction. Ask yourself, how many repetitive decisions happen every single day? How many emails, approvals, notifications, status updates, follow-ups, reports? Automations should eliminate repetitive coordination, so humans can focus on judgment, and technology should automate routine, not the thinking itself, right? So like, ask yourself, how many decisions do you make every single day? Like how many emails? So like, think about this way. You have an email software. That email software, let's say when somebody picks up your lead magnet or when somebody picks up something, that email automatically gets a trigger. That trigger sends out an email, then a follow-up sequence begins, then they jump on a call, it's a qualification process. Everything works seamlessly together. So think about it this way. Somebody picks up a lead, first you need to go check your inbox before you notice somebody picks up. So now you're losing time, you're losing more money potentially. This means you have to first notice somebody actually picked the lead to send an email. Then you have to remember to send a second email. And that means you don't have no automation. And so now you're making the same decisions every single day that could be actually automated, but they are not automated. The same works out with your actual onboarding. You can automate your onboarding as well. Most of us choose not to because we think, oh, it's all to do with control, quality, and everything. But you can optimize it and automate it automatically, which will get the same process and the same result, which you don't have to think too much about. So layer 4, decision intelligence. Technology becomes powerful when it improves decisions, dashboards, KPIs, forecasts, alerts, predictive analytics. Artificial intelligence, these aren't reporting tools, by the way, that you can't just, forecast is not reporting, KPIs is not reporting. They are executive decision systems. When you look at a KPI, it shouldn't tell you what's happening. It's like, what do you do with what is currently happening inside of your company? That's what matters. You make decisions around those systems, you make decisions around those numbers, you make decisions around leadership. A dashboard isn't valuable because it displays your numbers. It's valuable because it helps leaders to act sooner. It helps you to understand what is the breaking point, what needs to be fixed, what needs to be better managed, what needs to be optimized. Layer 5, digital infrastructure. This is the highest level. Technology should disappear. Technology should disappear. Think about electricity. You don't think about electricity while working, you expect it. Technology should feel the same. Reliable, invisible, always available. Infrastructure exists so work flows naturally. When technology becomes the bottleneck, the architecture has failed. So like, you don't think about electricity just flowing through your computer or to your phone or charging your devices. You just expect it to be there. So you don't think about it, why it's happening, but it is actually working. You expect it to be. So the technology should be exactly the same way. It should be there. It should be available. It should be doing the work for them. Infrastructure exists so work flows actually naturally. Okay. How AI changes everything. Most people think of AI it replaces employees. You probably have heard this before. Yeah, when AI will come in, it's going to replace a lot of jobs. It's going to replace a lot of employees. It's going to replace a lot of people. It's not true, actually. It's going to make everybody's work much easier, much faster, much better. So most people think AI replaces, right? That's the wrong question. The better question is, what capabilities can AI strengthen? AI strengthens knowledge, decision support, content generation, documentation, research, diagnostic, customer support, forecasting, analysis, pattern recognition. AI isn't another department. It's a capability multiplier across every operating system. The technology flywheel is this. You have data, information, visibility, decisions, automation, speed, competitive advantage. Okay? Technology really matters here because what you do with data eventually determines how the business will evolve and how the business will actually grow. If you don't have the right technology to convert the data into actual intelligence report that gives you better visibility, gives you better decisions, gives you better automation, speed, and competitive advantage, then technology has no meaning for you. But technology has to serve a purpose. Technology isn't valuable because it's digital. Technology is valuable because it shortens the time between reality and executive action. Why digital transformation fails? Many companies spend millions on technology, yet nothing changes, and the big question is why? Because they digitize broken processes. Technology never fixes a bad architecture. Like, a bad employee cannot fix bad business systems. A software is not gonna make the sales process go better. They will just help the communication. They will just help the amplification of what is already happening. So you need to understand this. What creates everything better inside of your business is the architecture. It's the systems behind that drives the actual business. Okay. Once you improve the systems, everything else will improve. So the digital transformation fails is because we try to implement and integrate technology into broken systems. That's when everything is breaking. It simply makes inefficient processes faster. Before implementing technology, you have to improve the systems, because once you have systems flawlessly working, it's just going to add on top of the flawless execution. Then you can automate it. Automation should be the final step, not the first. You don't automate a bad system, you automate a great system. So first you need to have a great system before you actually automate it. The digital shadow. Every company has two businesses, the physical organization and the digital organization. The physical organization is people. The digital organization is the CRM, knowledge, workflows, dashboards, automation, data, AI, and everything else that comes with it. Every year, the digital organization becomes more valuable. The companies that master it scale faster, learn faster, adapt faster, compete better. Executive dashboard that you should have. First, going back on the digital. There's a lot of AI tools. There's a lot of digital things available. What you need to understand is, in order for you to make your company really great, you need to adapt with what's currently happening. If AI comes out, you don't need to hide away from AI. You need to implement it to make your company 10 times better to what it currently is. It's the same as, remember when you had to send money and you had to go in a bank to send money. Now you can send money from your digital device. If the banks wouldn't adapt to that, we will still be in the old mode. We still will go into the bank to send them money. It will take more time. We can't send it. We can't access it. Like, imagine if you would only can get the money out from your bank in your bank. There would be no ATMs. That would slow everything down. There would be only certain days when you need the money. Like, the operation will slow down. So this is why with technology, we need to involve as a company as well. So executive dashboard, this is what you should have. This is what you should have right now to understand technology inside of your business. Where is information delayed? Which decisions require manual work? Which systems don't communicate? How much work could be automated? Where does duplicate data exist? Which reports cannot be trusted? How quickly leadership access information? Which repetitive activities consume the most time? Where does technology create friction instead of reducing it? Failure symptoms. If the technology operating system is weak, employees duplicate work, different departments report different numbers, manual reporting consumes hours, leaders make decisions without data, information becomes outdated, software adoption remains low, customer experience consistently is experiencing inconsistent communication, processes rely on spreadsheets, teams consistently ask, where do I find that? Okay. Executive principle. Technology doesn't create intelligent organizations. Technology enables intelligent organizations to think much faster. The software isn't the advantage. The architecture behind it is the advantage. It's just like literally, if you have a great sports car and you have nitro, you have nitro in the car, nitros, you can boost the speed with the nitro. Let's say if your car is not fast, it's broken, it's not great, by pushing nitro, you can just literally explode yourself in the car. So before you use nitro, you need to have a really high performing car. That's the same with your company. You need to have a really high performing car. I want you to imagine two consulting firms. Some time back, I did some research. I looked into two companies, and it's kind of interesting because it goes exactly what we just covered. So imagine two consulting firms, both the same offer, same industry, same everything, right? Both use HubSpot, both use ClickUp, both use Slack, both use AI. Firm A, 10 million a year, has disconnected systems, sells manually, updates CRM. So like closers, SDRs, everything happens manually. They update the CRM. Operations manually create projects. Finance manually invoices. Leadership manually builds reports. Everything depends on people's remembering. So 10 million a year. Now look at 100 million a year business. Firm B has engineered digital infrastructure, deals automatically create delivery projects, invoices generate automatically, customer health updates in real time, dashboards refresh instantly, AI summarizes meetings, knowledge is searchable, leadership sees reality immediately, same software, different architecture, completely different enterprise capability, completely different value, completely different revenue, completely different things. Why? One had a broken system, they added more tools, which create more friction and more diversity. And with more diversity, they basically get more decay. And the other one had a great system which added tools, increased the capability, increased the communication, they thought faster, they executed faster. Okay, so those are the two differences between one who adds the technology on top of great systems and another one that adds technology on top of broken systems. So we now engineer 6 enterprise operating systems. Revenue that creates growth, client success creates transformation, operations create predictable execution, people create organizational capability, finance allocates capital, technology connects the enterprise. Now I said it's going to be the last chapter. However, I wanted to include absolutely everything to help you to understand everything you need in order for you to build a durable company for the next generation, next 2 generations, right? So, but one operating system sits above them all. It doesn't generate revenue directly. It doesn't deliver projects. It doesn't process payroll. Instead, it improves every other operating system simultaneously. It is the operating system responsible for organizational learning, intellectual property, decision quality, and competitive advantage. This is the executive intelligence operating system, and it may be the most valuable system in the entire enterprise. So chapter 11 is the executive intelligence operating system, which is called the EIOS. Engineer organizational intelligence. Let's imagine something here. 2 founders start identical businesses, same market, same offer, same experience, same capital, same opportunities. Fast forward 10 years. One company is worth 20 million, the other is 500 million. Maybe you know what I'm talking about right now. What happened was most people immediately think better marketing, better sales, better leadership, maybe. But eventually every elite company develops something far more valuable. The ability to think better than its competitors. Not because the CEO is smarter, because the organization itself becomes intelligent. This is where most founders completely misunderstand competitive advantage. They believe competitive advantage comes from products. It doesn't. Products can be copied. Pricing can be copied. Marketing can be copied. Technology can be copied. even people leave. But organization that continuously learns, continuously improves, continuously captures knowledge, continuously makes better decisions becomes almost impossible to copy. That's the purpose of the executive intelligence operating system. So, the knowledge problem. Imagine tomorrow your best salesperson resigns. Let's say even your best operator, they just say, hey, I cannot work anymore here, I have to go. What leaves with them? Not just the person, the knowledge, the relationship, the experience, the judgment, the patterns, the objections, negotiating skills, customer understanding, and there's nothing you can do about it. They just had to go. Now imagine your operations director resigns. What leaves? More knowledge. Eventually you realize something. Your company isn't losing employees, it's leaking intelligence. Because you didn't have the right systems, you didn't have the right knowledge. So when you try to even place somebody, you're like, okay, sales guy left, I need a new sales guy. Now that new sales guy doesn't have half of the information that the previous had, half of the knowledge, half of the, so it's time, how can you get them back to a level where they can perform like the previous person? And so when somebody leaves, it's like, hey, it doesn't really matter because I can get a new one, place them in a system that will be exactly the same, right? So eventually you realize something important. Your company wasn't losing the employees, it was leaking intelligence. Most founders never see this. They think knowledge belongs to people. Enterprise organizations is how something different starts to happen. Knowledge belongs to the organization, not to the person itself. The biggest lie about knowledge is that most founders believe learning happens naturally. It doesn't. Organizations naturally forget things. Think about it. How many times has someone asked, how do we normally do this? How do you do this? Didn't we solve this before? Where's that document? Can somebody send me this report? Who knows the answer? Who do I need to speak to? Every one of those questions is an evidence of organizational memory failure. Memory should never depend on people. Memory should depend on systems. Intelligence is an operating system. Let's redefine intelligence. Intelligence isn't IQ. It isn't education. It isn't reading books. Organizational intelligence is the ability of a company consistently convert information into better decisions. That's the intelligence. Every decision creates data. Every project creates lessons. Every customer creates insights. Every mistake creates knowledge. The question is, does the organization captures it or it loses it forever? So the knowledge flywheel that you need to know. Experience, observation, knowledge, frameworks, better decisions, better results, new experience. This is how you build your company. You need to have stored knowledge. You need to have cabinets of knowledge files that you don't lose. Because eventually you want to think like an independent organization, not depend on A players coming in. Like you have somebody 50 years experience, you need to capture all that experience that they have inside of your organization. So when the next person comes, you can give them that and they can start from where they left. Most companies stop at experience. Elite organizations continue. They convert experience into repeatable knowledge. Knowledge becomes frameworks. Frameworks improve decisions. Better decisions create better outcomes. Better outcomes create new experience. The flywheel continues forever. This is why mature organizations improve faster than immature organizations. It's like I can hire a closer, but if he's really good closer, right? And he's closing, he's having a lot of knowledge, I want to take that knowledge and place it inside of my company. So when the next closer comes, I can give him that same knowledge. A director comes, a CEO comes, like a CFO, CMO. I want to take everything they have, place it in my organization, take entire their brain hardware, place it in my organization, and adapt to my organization. That's how I get the people and I get their entire knowledge. The 5 layers of executive intelligence. Layer 1, knowledge capture. Knowledge enters organization every day. Customer conversations, sales calls, delivery, hiring, coaching, marketing, leadership, meetings, projects, failures, successes. The question isn't are we learning? The question is are we capturing what we are learning? Knowledge not captured disappears, and disappeared knowledge means we need to learn again. Layer 2, pattern recognition. This is where executives become extraordinary. They stop seeing isolated events by happening themselves, and they look at the history and the patterns and they follow the entire timeline to make better decisions. One salesperson struggles, interesting. Every salesperson struggles, pattern. Elite CEOs don't react to actual events itself. It's like, hey, we have at this certain event, we always have the same people always struggling. That's a pattern. They diagnose, they involve, they make the right architecture, they solve the right pattern. Layer 3, framework development. Here's where your business becomes unique. Raw knowledge isn't valuable. Frameworks are. Why? Because frameworks compress complexity into clarity. Think about frameworks you're teaching right now. Business systems, architecture, enterprise operating systems, or revenue operating systems. These aren't just ideas. They are compression systems. They allow people to understand incredibly complex businesses quickly, smoothly, with clarity. Every company should consistently build frameworks because frameworks help people to execute much better. Layer 4, decision intelligence. It's how we make decisions. Most businesses repeat mistakes because decisions disappear. So what you need to do is you need to re-engineer and engineer the entire decision making through the knowledge you already have. Decision quality improves dramatically when you do that. The organization begins learning from itself, and this is how elite companies reduce strategic mistakes as well. When you engineer the decision making. Layer 5, organizational learning. This is the highest level because organizations should continuously ask what worked, why, what failed, and how we can improve. What assumptions proved false, what surprised us, what should become standard. Learning should never depend on annual strategy sessions. It should happen every single day. So, most valuable asset. If someone offered to buy your company tomorrow, what would they actually purchase? Your laptop, your CRM, your office? No. What would they do? They would purchase your operating systems, your knowledge, your people, your frameworks, your decision making, your customer relationships, your capabilities, your architecture, your enterprise values come from intelligence made scalable. So that's why most people currently don't have a scalable company. They don't have a sellable company as well because they don't have the right decision making, the right structures. Everything depends on one person. Everything depends on actual founder himself. The learning organization. Most businesses operate like memory, right? Enterprise organizations operate like learning. Memory remembers, learning improves. It's like AI. It evolves. It gets better with every single question it gets asked. This is why your company needs to become the same. Every process, every project, every customer, every hire, every failure should leave the company smarter. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time. So, a couple things every CEO should know. What knowledge did we create this month? Which frameworks we improved? What assumptions proved incorrect? What recording mistakes still exist? How many playbooks were improved? Which capabilities increased? Where is the knowledge still trapped inside of individuals? What competitive advantage are we developing? And how quickly does the organization learn? And then some failure symptoms. If the executive intelligence operating system is weak, employees repeatedly ask the same questions, mistakes repeat, knowledge leaves with people, training takes too long, people cannot be ramped into their KPI, every project starts from scratch, innovation slows, decision quality stagnates as well and slows down, and the company becomes busy. So this is the principle I want you to know. The most valuable companies don't know more, they learn faster. That's it. Learn faster. So the executive intelligence operating system doesn't exist to store information, it exists to increase the organization's ability to think, to learn, to adapt, to improve, to make better decisions tomorrow, which will help you to grow your company. So now we have built the revenue that creates growth, client success creates transformation, operations create predictable execution, people create organizational capability, finance allocate capital, technology connects the enterprise, executive intelligence continuously improves every system. But there's one final question. How do these 7 operating systems actually work together? Because individually they are powerful. Together they become something much bigger. They become an enterprise. So chapter 12, which will be the final chapter of this masterclass, is the enterprise architecture. How everything works together. So chapter 12, enterprise architecture. How everything works together. Now let's step a little bit back. We spent this entire masterclass studying 7 enterprise operating systems: revenue, client success, operations, people, finance, technology, executive intelligence. I know this has been a really long class and there's a lot to learn here. Most people will leave this video thinking, great, 7 systems. That's not what I want you to remember, because the truth is there aren't actually 7 businesses inside your business. There is only one business, one living organism, one enterprise, one architecture. The 7 operating systems simply describe how that organism actually functions. So stop seeing departments. Imagine walking into a human body. Would you say the heart operates independently, the lungs operate independently, the brain operates independently, the immune system operates independently? Of course not. Every organ exists because every other organ exists. They continuously exchange information, energy, resources, signals. Businesses behave exactly the same way. Revenue doesn't operate independently, operations doesn't operate independently, finance doesn't operate independently. Everything continuously affects everything else. That is enterprise architecture. Every business is a network. So instead of a linear pipeline, envision a network. Executive management at the center with a revenue OS, operation OS, finance OS, client success OS, technology OS, people OS, and executive intelligence OS. Interconnected in a feedback loop. Nothing flows in one direction. Everything creates feedback. Everything influences everything else. That is why businesses become difficult to understand, because they are networks, not actual pipelines. I want you to imagine two consulting firms. Some time back, I did some research. I looked into two companies, and it's kind of interesting because it goes exactly what we just covered. So imagine two consulting firms, both the same offer, same industry, same everything, right? Both use HubSpot, both use ClickUp, both use Slack, both use AI. Firm A, 10 million a year, has disconnected systems, sells manually, updates CRM. So like closers, SDRs, everything happens manually. They update the CRM. Operations manually create projects. Finance manually invoices. Leadership manually builds reports. Everything depends on people's remembering. So 10 million a year. Now look at 100 million a year business. Firm B has engineered digital infrastructure, deals automatically create delivery projects, invoices generate automatically, customer health updates in real time, dashboards refresh instantly, AI summarizes meetings, knowledge is searchable, leadership sees reality immediately, same software, different architecture, completely different enterprise capability, completely different value, completely different revenue, completely different things. Why? One had a broken system, they added more tools, which create more friction and more diversity. And with more diversity, they basically get more decay. And the other one had a great system which added tools, increased the capability, increased the communication, they thought faster, they executed faster. Okay, so those are the two differences between one who adds the technology on top of great systems and another one that adds technology on top of broken systems. So we now engineer 6 enterprise operating systems. Revenue that creates growth, client success creates transformation, operations create predictable execution, people create organizational capability, finance allocates capital, technology connects the enterprise. Now I said it's going to be the last chapter. However, I wanted to include absolutely everything to help you to understand everything you need in order for you to build a durable company for the next generation, next 2 generations, right? So, but one operating system sits above them all. It doesn't generate revenue directly. It doesn't deliver projects. It doesn't process payroll. Instead, it improves every other operating system simultaneously. It is the operating system responsible for organizational learning, intellectual property, decision quality, and competitive advantage. This is the executive intelligence operating system, and it may be the most valuable system in the entire enterprise. So chapter 11 is the executive intelligence operating system, which is called the EIOS. Engineer organizational intelligence. Let's imagine something here. 2 founders start identical businesses, same market, same offer, same experience, same capital, same opportunities. Fast forward 10 years. One company is worth 20 million, the other is 500 million. Maybe you know what I'm talking about right now. What happened was most people immediately think better marketing, better sales, better leadership, maybe. But eventually every elite company develops something far more valuable. The ability to think better than its competitors. Not because the CEO is smarter, because the organization itself becomes intelligent. This is where most founders completely misunderstand competitive advantage. They believe competitive advantage comes from products. It doesn't. Products can be copied, pricing can be copied, marketing can be copied, technology can be copied, even people leave. But organization that continuously learns, continuously improves, continuously captures knowledge, continuously makes better decisions becomes almost impossible to copy. That's the purpose of the executive intelligence operating system. So, the knowledge problem. Imagine tomorrow your best salesperson resigns. Let's say even your best operator, they just say, hey, I cannot work anymore here, I have to go. What leaves with them? Not just the person, the knowledge, the relationship, the experience, the judgment, the patterns, the objections, negotiating skills, customer understanding, and there's nothing you can do about it. They just had to go. Now imagine your operations director resigns. What leaves? More knowledge. Eventually you realize something. Your company isn't losing employees, it's leaking intelligence. Because you didn't have the right systems, you didn't have the right knowledge. So when you try to even place somebody, you're like, okay, sales guy left, I need a new sales guy. Now that new sales guy doesn't have half of the information that the previous had, half of the knowledge, half of the... So it's time, how can you get them back to a level where they can perform like the previous person? And so when somebody leaves, it's like, hey, it doesn't really matter because I can get a new one, place them in a system that will be exactly the same, right? So eventually you realize something important. Your company wasn't losing the employees, it was leaking intelligence. Most founders never see this. They think knowledge belongs to people. Enterprise organizations is how something different starts to happen. Knowledge belongs to the organization, not to the person itself. The biggest lie about knowledge is that most founders believe learning happens naturally. It doesn't. Organizations naturally forget forget things. Think about it. How many times has someone asked, how do we normally do this? How do you do this? Didn't we solve this before? Where's that document? Can somebody send me this report? Who knows the answer? Who do I need to speak to? Every one of those questions is an evidence of organizational memory failure. Memory should never depend on people. Memory should depend on systems. Intelligence is an operating system. Let's redefine intelligence. Intelligence isn't IQ. It isn't education. It isn't reading books. Organizational intelligence is the ability of a company consistently convert information into better decisions. That's the intelligence. Every decision creates data. Every project creates lessons. Every customer creates insights. Every mistake creates knowledge. The question is, does the organization captures it or it loses it forever? So the knowledge flywheel that you need to know. Experience, observation, knowledge, frameworks, better decisions, better results, new experience. This is how you build your company. You need to have stored knowledge. You need to have cabinets of knowledge files that you don't lose. Because eventually you want to think like an independent organization, not depend on A players coming in. Like you have somebody 50 years experience, you need to capture all that experience that they have inside of your organization. So when the next person comes, you can give them that and they can start from where they left. Most companies stop at experience. Elite organizations continue. They convert experience into repeatable knowledge. Knowledge becomes frameworks. Frameworks improve decisions. Better decisions create better outcomes. Better outcomes create new experience. The flywheel continues forever. This is why mature organizations improve faster than immature organizations. It's like I can hire a closer, but if he's a really good closer, right? And he's closing, he's having a lot of knowledge, I want to take that knowledge and place it inside of my company. So when the next closer comes, I can give him that same knowledge. A director comes, a CEO comes, like a CFO, CMO. I want to take everything they have, place it in my organization, take entire their brain hardware, place it in my organization, and adapt to my organization. That's how I get the people and I get their entire knowledge. The 5 layers of executive intelligence. Layer 1, knowledge capture. Knowledge enters organization every day. Customer conversations, sales calls, delivery, hiring, coaching, marketing, leadership, meetings, projects, failures, successes. The question isn't are we learning? The question is are we capturing what we are learning? Knowledge not captured disappears, and disappeared knowledge means we need to learn again. Layer 2, pattern recognition. This is where executives become extraordinary. They stop seeing isolated events by happening themselves, and they look at the history and the patterns and they follow the entire timeline to make better decisions. One salesperson struggles, interesting. Every salesperson struggles, pattern. Elite CEOs don't react to actual events itself. It's like, hey, we have at this certain event, we always have the same people always struggling. That's a pattern. They diagnose, they involve, they make the right architecture, they solve the right pattern. Layer 3, framework development. Here's where your business becomes unique. Raw knowledge isn't valuable, frameworks are. Why? Because frameworks compress complexity into clarity. Think about frameworks you're teaching right now. Business systems, architecture, enterprise operating systems, or revenue operating systems. These aren't just ideas, they are compression systems. They allow people to understand incredibly complex businesses quickly, smoothly, with clarity. Every company should consistently build frameworks because frameworks help people to execute much better. Layer 4, decision intelligence. It's how we make decisions. Most businesses repeat mistakes because decisions disappear. So what you need to do is you need to re-engineer and engineer the entire decision making through the knowledge you already have. Decision quality improves dramatically when you do that. The organization begins learning from itself, and this is how elite companies reduce strategic mistakes as well. When you engineer the decision making. Layer 5, organizational learning. This is the highest level because organizations should continuously ask what worked, why, what failed, and how we can improve. What assumptions proved false, what surprised us, what should become standard. Learning should never depend on annual strategy sessions. It should happen every single day. So, most valuable asset. If someone offered to buy your company tomorrow, what would they actually purchase? Your laptop, your CRM, your office? No. What would they do? They would purchase your operating systems, your knowledge, your people, your frameworks, your decision making, your customer relationships, your capabilities, your architecture, your enterprise values come from intelligence made scalable. So that's why most people currently don't have a scalable company. They don't have a sellable company as well because they don't have the right decision making, the right structures. Everything depends on one person. Everything depends on actual founder himself. The learning organization. Most businesses operate like memory, right? Enterprise organizations operate like learning. Memory remembers, learning improves. It's like AI. It evolves. It gets better with every single question it gets asked. This is why your company needs to become the same. Every process, every project, every customer, every hire, every failure should leave the company smarter. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time. So, a couple things every CEO should know. What knowledge did we create this month? Which frameworks we improved? What assumptions proved incorrect? What recording mistakes still exist? How many playbooks were improved? Which capabilities increased? Where is the knowledge still trapped inside of individuals? What competitive advantage are we developing? And how quickly does the organization learn? And then some failure symptoms. If the executive intelligence operating system is weak, employees repeatedly ask the same questions, mistakes repeat, knowledge leaves with people, training takes too long, people cannot be ramped into their KPI, every project starts from scratch, innovation slows, decision quality stagnates as well and slows down, and the company becomes busy. So this is the principle I want you to know. The most valuable companies don't know more, they learn faster. That's it. Learn faster. So the executive intelligence operating system doesn't exist to store information, it exists to increase the organization's ability to think, to learn, to adapt, to improve, to make the decisions tomorrow, which will help you to grow your company. So now we have built the revenue that creates growth, client success creates transformation, operations create predictable execution, people create organizational capability, finance allocate capital, technology connects the enterprise, executive intelligence continuously improves every system. But there's one final question. How do these 7 operating systems actually work together? Because individually they are powerful, together they become something much bigger. They become an enterprise. So chapter 12, which will be the final chapter of this masterclass, is the enterprise architecture, how everything works together. So chapter 12, enterprise architecture, how everything works together. Now let's step a little bit back. We spent this entire masterclass studying 7 enterprise operating systems: revenue, client success, operations, people, finance, technology, executive intelligence. I know this has been a really long class and there's a lot to learn here. Most people will leave this video thinking, great, 7 systems. That's not what I want you to remember, because the truth is there aren't actually 7 businesses inside your business. There is only one business, one living organism, one enterprise, one architecture. The 7 operating systems simply describe how that organism actually functions. So stop seeing departments. Imagine walking into a human body. Would you say the heart operates independently, the lungs operate independently, the brain operates independently, the immune system operates independently? Of course not. Every organ exists because every other organ exists. They continuously exchange information, energy, resources, signals. Businesses behave exactly the same way. Revenue doesn't operate independently, operations doesn't operate independently, finance doesn't operate independently. Everything continuously affects everything else. That is enterprise architecture. Every business is a network. So instead of a linear pipeline, envision a network. Executive management at the center with a revenue OS, operation OS, finance OS, client success OS, technology OS, people OS, and executive intelligence OS. Interconnected in a feedback loop. Nothing flows in one direction. Everything creates feedback. Everything influences everything else. That is why businesses become difficult to understand, because they are networks, not actual pipelines. Next, you have to understand the entire formula: reversibility versus consequence. You have experimental, which is high stake reversible. You have low stake reversible, which is type 2 decision, full autonomy, representing 80% of volume, less than 80% of volume. Then you have high stake irreversible, type 1 decision, requires executive review. Low stake irreversible, delegate. So what does this mean? This means we can experiment, which could be high stake, which means if we fail, it could be reversible. It could be type 1 decision we make, which is really high stake, but it's irreversible. So that means some decisions that we can make can be reversed. We can do it again. Like experimental, when we experiment, we can reverse that. We can experiment again. We can make type 2 decision, which is low stake reversible. So it's like type 2 decision, it's not going to really affect us. It's not going to really matter so much. We can reverse it. Then on the other hand, it's really low reversibility. So that means like high stake and really irreversible. So that means we make a decision that potentially can alter the journey of this entire business, the mission of this business, the direction of the business, which is irreversible. It's basically meaning the moment you close a client, right, and the moment you have that client and you have promised him something that you cannot deliver, it's going to be really irreversible for you to go back and say, well, I actually cannot deliver that, because you already have made that promise. It's like irreversible could be, it could be you hired somebody, you already have paid them to do the job, you already have signed the agreement, which is going to be really hard to it's going to be really hard to reverse back, because you already have done and signed everything. And that decision, what they're going to be building for you, is going to alter the direction of your business. Okay, so you can hire somebody, you can pay them, you can do everything, and now it's really hard to get out from that contract because it's already signed, it's done. It's really hard to reverse it. So it's called an irreversible decision. So you have these type of decisions. So when you look at the decisions you're making, ask yourself, is this a reversible decision? So let's say we experiment with ads. Yes, ads could be reversible. We can maybe fail. We can test it again. We may be going to lose some budget. That's reversible. Then there's irreversible decisions, okay, that you cannot reverse so easily. Also delegate. We have low stake and the reversibility. So that means I can delegate this to somebody, but it's going to be really hard for me to in the reverse that, because right now I pay them, they are here like an agency, like I said to you. Then we have type 2 decisions, which are small decisions that we can reverse. We can come back to them. If this decision is bad, we can make another decision. So there are decisions that you can make and make them again. If they are bad, you can make it another one. And then there are decisions that are really bad that you cannot reverse. There are good decisions that you cannot reverse as well. So you need to really ask yourself, what type of decision I'm currently making? So next one is the business flywheel. Revenue operating system, client success operating system, operations operating system, people operating system, technology operating system, executive intelligence operating system, finance operating system, and the revenue operating system. Revenue creates customers, customers create learning, learning improves systems, systems improve execution, execution improves customer outcomes, better customer outcomes improve retention, retention improves financial strength, financial strength funds capability, capability improves revenue. Everything compounds. That's why enterprise businesses accelerate. So why businesses plateau? Most founders think I hit revenue ceiling. No, revenue doesn't have ceilings, by the way. Like somebody does like 50 million a year, they're like, we hit revenue ceiling. Well, there's businesses doing hundreds of millions a year and they haven't hit the ceiling and they're still growing. So you don't have a ceiling. Architecture does have the ceiling. The systems you have architected have the ceiling. Imagine trying to build a 50-story skyscraper on the foundation of a 2-story house. That's impossible. Not because you lack ambition, but because the architecture cannot support the load. Businesses plateau for exactly the same reason. The operating system were designed for yesterday's business, not tomorrow's. Every new level of growth requires stronger architecture. So scaling is not growth. Growth is increasing revenue. Scaling is increasing the capability. There's a huge difference. A business can double revenue without becoming more capable. Eventually, complexity wins. Real scaling means revenue grows, capability grows, leadership grows, technology grows, process grows, knowledge grows, decision quality grows. Everything evolves together. That's called scaling. In the modern society, you're looking at most of these ads, people say, I'm going to help you to scale. What they're talking about is actual growth. They're going to help you to grow the revenue. Scaling means like they're going to help you to do decision quality, knowledge, process, technology, leadership, capability, revenue. Most of these people that are currently speaking about scaling, they have no idea what actually scaling means. They only understand the word growth, which is like kind of hidden in scaling. So the new CEO's identity. And this is the CEO's new identity that you must have in order for you to build something like this. Most founders think their job is selling, hiring, managing marketing, and putting out fires. That's the entrepreneur. The CEO has different responsibility. The CEO designs systems, the CEO allocates capital, the CEO develops leaders, the CEO improves architecture, the CEO protects culture, the CEO increases organizational intelligence. The CEO isn't inside the machine, the CEO improves the machine itself. The enterprise equation. Enterprise value, leadership quality, decision quality, system quality, execution quality, learning speed. Every variable multiplies, not adds. If one becomes weak, enterprise value suffers as well. That's why great CEOs don't optimize one department, they strengthen the entire enterprise. This is the great illusion. Most companies fail because they outgrow their own architecture. They become too complex, communication slows, decision quality fails, knowledge disappears, execution becomes inconsistent, and founders become overwhelmed. And then at that stage, growth stops. What great CEOs actually do? People often ask, what does a great CEO do? So what do CEOs do all day? Now you know they don't simply attend meetings, they continuously improve 7 operating systems. Every decision, every hire, every investment, every acquisition, every strategy ultimately strengthens or weakens one of those operating systems. Your business will outperform its architecture. I want you to kind of really read that slowly right now yourself. Your business will never outperform its architecture. If you have foundation for 10-store building, you cannot build 20-store building because your foundation is only for 10-store building. It's not your marketing, not your sales, not your employees, not your software. It's architecture determines performance, always. So the final story. Imagine 2 founders. One spends 10 years chasing tactics, Facebook ads, funnels, cold email, AI. This is what the modern generation do. Like we focus on funnels, ads, and things. The other spends 10 years improving architecture, leadership, systems, decision, technology, knowledge. 10 years later, one has a business, the other has an enterprise. That's the main difference. So the companies that change industries become category leaders and survive decades almost. Not because they were working harder, but because they had the right infrastructure, because they had the right systems. They win because they become better designed organizations. The future of a business belongs to founders who build organizations capable of learning faster than everyone else. Businesses aren't built from effort, they are built from systems. Systems create capabilities, capabilities create execution, execution creates value, value creates enterprise, and enterprise is what creates impact in the industry. It is simply architecture that actually scales. We went through so much. If you really enjoyed this video, I gave you so much. I gave all my notes in this entire masterclass as well. I know I read them through you. I gave them absolutely a good read myself. I want you to have a lot of value. If you really enjoy this, it helps you to understand differently your business, smash subscribe button right now. Subscribe because I will release more content like this that changes your way of thinking of your business, helps you to build a 100-year durable business, a sellable company, an asset to yourself and to somebody that actually wants to buy your company as well. Subscribe right now, smash the like button, comment down below so I can actually help you to answer any questions you have regarding this video, so I can help you to build the business you want.